Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, April 17th, 2018. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam President. President Breed.
Here.
Breed present. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen not present. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer not present. Supervisor Kim. Kim not present. Supervisor Peskin. Peskin present. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan present. Supervisor Safai. Safai present. Supervisor Sheehy. Sheehy present. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie present. Supervisor Tang. Tang not present. Supervisor Yee. Yee present. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen present. Supervisor Kim. Kim present. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
There are none to report, Madam President.
Okay, colleagues, today we are approving the minutes from March 13th, 2018. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Moved by Supervisor Kim, seconded by Supervisor Stephanie. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, those meeting minutes will be passed after public comment. Madam Clerk, please read the consent agenda.
Items 1 through 23 are on consent. These items are considered to be routine. If a member objects, an item may be removed and considered separately.
Roll call vote.
On items 1 through 23, Supervisor Fewer.
Aye.
Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan.
Aye.
Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee. Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Those items are adopted unanimously. Next item, please.
Item 24 is an ordinance to appropriate prior year's fund balance from the general fund in the amount of $1.1 million to Public Works to fund a street and sidewalk cleaning pilot enhancement project in fiscal years 2017 through 2018.
Roll call vote.
On item 24, Supervisor Fewer.
Aye.
Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
No.
Safai, no. Supervisor Sheehy.
No.
Sheehy, no. Supervisor Stephanie.
No.
Stephanie, no. Supervisor Tang.
No.
Tang, no. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
No.
Cohen, no. There are 6 ayes and 5 noes, with Supervisors Safai, Sheehy, Stephanie, Tang, and Cohen in the dissent.
The ordinance finally passes. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 25 is an ordinance to order the summary street vacation of a portion of Panama Street tangent to Niantic Street and Interstate Highway 280 in the Ocean View neighborhood to convey the city's street vacation area interest to the owner of 10 Niantic Street and to accept the public sidewalk for city maintenance and liability, to affirm the CEQA determination, and to make the appropriate findings.
Roll call vote.
On item 25, Supervisor Fewer.
Aye.
Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy. Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. There are 11 ayes.
The ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call items 26 through 28 together.
These are 3 resolutions to approve concession leases with the San Francisco Airport. Item 26 approves the International Terminal A Food Hall and Cafe lease between SSP America, Inc. and the city for a 10-year term with 2 one-year options to extend and a minimum annual guarantee, or a MAG, of $495,000 for the first year of the lease. Item 27 approves the International Terminal A coffee kiosk lease between Black Point Coffee, SFO, LLC, and the city for an 8-year term with 2 one-year options to extend and a MAG of $165,000 for the first year of the lease. And item 28 approves the International Terminal A historic restaurant lease between Andre Boudin Bakeries, Inc. and the city for a 10-year term with 2 one-year options to extend and a MAG of $333,000 for the first year of the lease.
Colleagues, can we take those items, same house, same call? Without objection, those items are adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, let's go to the next item, please.
Item 29 is a resolution to retroactively approve the Fourth Amendment to the revenue agreement between Public Works and J.C. Deco, San Francisco, LLC, for the automatic public toilet and service kiosk program and to extend the contract to October 12th, 2018.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next, Madam Clerk, please call items 30 and 31 together.
Item 30 is an ordinance to amend the electrical code to correct the title for the low voltage lighting section and conform to the title in the California Electrical Code. Item 31 is the ordinance to amend the plumbing code to prohibit the use of circuit venting unless approved as an alternative engineered design, to affirm the CEQA determination and to make the appropriate findings.
Colleagues, can we take these items, same house, same call? Without objection, those ordinances pass unanimously on the first reading. Item 32.
Item 32, resolution to establish local biodiversity as a citywide priority with a framework for interagency collaboration for nature-based initiatives.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item.
Item 33 is a resolution to adopt findings under the California Environmental Quality Act, otherwise known as CEQA, the CEQA guidelines, and San Francisco Administrative Code Chapter 31, including the adoption of a statement of overriding considerations and a mitigation and monitoring reporting program related to the funding of the biosolids digester facilities project.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item.
Item 34 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to repeal local law enforcement data collection and reporting requirements associated with traffic stops, detentions, and arrests, while requiring that such data under state law must be reported to the Attorney General, must now also be reported to the Mayor and the Board of Supervisors, to the Police and Human Rights Commissions.
Supervisor Cohen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for hearing this item today. Starting in July of 2018, Assembly Bill 593 will require law enforcement agencies throughout California to collect stop data. And this is a bill that was introduced by Assemblywoman Shirley Weber that represents a district down in San Diego. And the state-mandated data collection requirements for stops substantially duplicates Chapter 96A, which is a piece of legislation that I authored and got passed several years ago. However, the state report will be issued on an annual basis. So the legislation before you today accomplishes 2 very simple things. First, it reconciles the differences between state and local law for stop collection data. Second, it includes amendments that require more frequent reporting of stop data collection than required by the state law. Now, in order to provide SFPD with time to build this new reporting system, the first 2 reports shall be semi-annual. The first semi-annual report will be due in May of 2019, and the second semi-annual report will be due in August of 2019. Each report thereafter will be due on a quarterly basis to the mayor's office, to the Board of Supervisors, to the Police Commission, and the Human Rights Commission. I want to acknowledge Ali Achiste and my staff that worked tirelessly to try to reconcile and to streamline the existing legislation here in the County of San Francisco and bring it into compliance and seamless transition into the state law. I also want to recognize the men and women from San Francisco Police Department that also assisted us in determining these dates that we are all in agreement to. So I hope that you will join me in supporting this legislation. This is clean, this is simple, and it's exactly the right thing we need to do. We need to be collecting stop data and making sure that we know who is being stopped, when, and at what frequency. Please join me in supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, can we take this item? Same House, same call. Without objection, the ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Next item.
Item 35 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to declare on the second Monday in October each year that in addition to celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day, that we shall also recognize and celebrate Italian American Heritage Day.
Supervisor Stephanie.
Thank you, President Breed. Colleagues, I'm so proud to see this ordinance before the full board today. I would first like to thank my co-sponsors, Supervisor Peskin, who represents North Beach, of course, and Supervisors Cohen, Breed, Safai, and Yee, who added his name as a co-sponsor at our Rules Committee hearing last week. There are a great number of Italians and Italian Americans who have made immeasurable contributions to San Francisco, as I mentioned in committee and when I introduced this ordinance at the full board. I also want to note that this ordinance is not just about the famous Italians who have left their mark. It truly aims to highlight and celebrate an entire community, past, present, and future, who work day to day to help our city thrive. Around 25 or so members of the Italian American community provided public comment at the Rules Committee last week. All proudly acknowledge the countless number of large and small acts individuals and families in the community have made and continue to make to our city. And I was especially moved by the messages from all of our speakers about coming together and promoting peace and understanding. So many people were thrilled to share the day with Indigenous Peoples Day and even mentioned how we can be a model for the rest of the nation. And to echo what Supervisor Yee said in Rules, San Francisco is a place of acceptance and a place that embraces cultures from all walks of life. I'm so proud to be able to represent the city and to be a part of the Italian American community. And I also want to thank CHOW, the Coalition of Italian American Organizations, for coming to the table and working with me on this. And again, I'd like to thank my co-sponsors, and to the rest of my colleagues, I hope to have your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Stephanie. Supervisor Ronan.
Thank you. Colleagues, I'm not going to be able to support this today, although I really deeply appreciate the work that Supervisor Stephanie and Cohen have put into this together with the Italian American community. I absolutely believe that we should celebrate Italian heritage, that it's a very important part of the city's history and should be recognized and celebrated. But when I voted for to change the second Monday of the month to Indigenous People Day, I did that because to me, that particular date is inextricably linked with the arrival of Columbus to this land and centuries of pain that our country has inflicted on Indigenous people, from forced assimilation to rape to massacre to horrible diseases. And I think that not having a separate day to celebrate Italian Heritage Day muddies that political act. So again, I'm not be able to support this, but I appreciate the intention behind it and the work on this. Thank you.
Seeing no other names on the roster, Madam Clerk, on the item, please call the roll.
On item 35, Supervisor Fewer. Aye. Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, no. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Stephanie.
Aye.
Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. There are 10 ayes and 1 no, with Supervisor Ronan in the dissent.
The ordinance passes on the first reading. Next item, please.
Item 36 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to change the composition of the Family Violence Council and to extend the sunset date for the council to May 1st, 2021.
Roll call vote.
On item 36, Supervisor Fewer. Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. There are 11 ayes.
The ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Item 37, please.
Item 37 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to authorize the Director of the Office of Cannabis to access summary criminal history information, to perform permit certification and licensing duties, and to permit employers to inquire about required disclosure of or base employment decisions on convictions for decriminalized behavior, including the non-commercial use and cultivation of cannabis, to meet the Cannabis Business Equity Incubator Program requirements.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Next item, please.
Item 38 is a resolution to adopt guiding principles to inform future legislation regulating emerging technology and urging the city administrator to inform future legislation by convening a working group.
Supervisor Yee.
Thank you, President Bree. My automated delivery device legislation was unanimously passed last month. Was the catalyst for the creation of this particular resolution. This legislation establishes a holistic framework for emerging technology and the presence and impact in and to San Francisco. We are all acutely aware of the motorized scooter share programs and the stationless bike startups that's been happening in the last few months, all which were already operating on our streets and sidewalks. I have been hearing from seniors and people in wheelchairs who are being imperiled and inconvenienced because they are having to navigate around scooters and bikes that not only blocking entryways or left in the middle of the sidewalk, but people are riding these motorized devices on the sidewalk. The arrogance of these companies dropping scooters and bikes, creating private bus routes without any notification, security robots, ride shares, all of which are recording data of our residents that we have no idea how it is used or if it is secured, or is really mind-blowing and should be unacceptable. These persuasive mobile instances of emerging technology in our city must accommodate the most vulnerable persons, including seniors, children, and those with limitations. And San Francisco welcomes and encourages emerging technology, but as a city, we must ensure that the technologies provide common good measured in identifiable ways and that they are safe and appropriate. A multi-billion-dollar global tech corporation utilizing publicly funded infrastructure or replacing jobs to enrich themselves does not align with common sense notions of fairness. Consideration must be given to whether we are benefiting the few at the expense of the many. The city and the public must effectively evaluate any emerging technologies, benefits, and impacts before they operate in our city infrastructure. In the interest of this objective, this resolution calls on the city administrator to convene a 6-month work group to develop recommendations on the regulatory and permitting process for emerging technologies. Today, the most salient examples of emerging technologies are mobility focus and impact our streets and sidewalks. However, the guiding principles and the recommendations created must be inclusive of technologies beyond mobility, to include startups and technologies that will potentially impact other critical resources such as water, air, and our environment. Recommendations must speak to industries beyond just mobility and transportation, health services, public-private partnerships, data sharing agreements, and anywhere there is a nexus with emerging technology in the public realm. Such a protocol would enable us to consider emerging technologies holistically with the stated goal of anticipating and intellectually minimizing or intelligently minimizing the friction between humans and the public-facing technologies. Although, to my knowledge, no other jurisdictions in the United States has attempted to regulatory framework for emerging technologies, I think we all agree we can no longer wait. I think the only way we can support emerging technology is by having clear processes. Innovation is a hallmark of San Francisco, and this legislation is aligned with that value. Emergency technologies are here and will continue to launch, but as a city, we must be mindful of both the intended and the unintended consequences. I want to thank I believe it was the Rules Committee who sent it out with a positive recommendation. I also want to thank Supervisor Ronan, whose district has been really the epicenter for launching a majority of the emerging technologies, as well as Supervisor Fior and Peskin as co-sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Colleagues, can we take this item, same House, same call? Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Item 39 is a resolution to authorize the appointment of alternate directors to serve on the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority Board of Directors.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item.
Item 40 is a motion to appoint Balam Vigil, term ending February 28, 2019, and Nellie Salander and Jason Schomenard, terms ending February 28, 2020, to the Balboa Park Station Community Advisory Committee.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the motion is approved unanimously. Next item.
Item 41 is a motion to confirm the mayor's nomination for reappointment of Doreen Wuho to the Port Commission for a term ending May 1st, 2022.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the motion is approved unanimously. Next item.
Item 42 is a motion confirming the mayor's nomination for appointment of Victor Macris to the Port Commission for a term ending May 1st, 2020.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the motion is approved unanimously. Next item.
Item 43 is a motion to approve the mayor's nomination for reappointment of V. Fei Sen to the Treasure Island Development Authority Board of Directors for a term ending February 26, 2022.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the motion is approved unanimously. Next item.
Item 44 is a motion to approve the mayor's nomination for reappointment of Linda Richardson to the Treasure Island Development Authority Board of Directors for a term ending April 28, 2022.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the motion is approved unanimously. Next item.
Item 45 is a motion to approve the mayor's nomination for reappointment of Paul Giusti to the Treasure Island Development Authority Board of Directors for a term ending April 28, 2022.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the motion is approved unanimously. Next item.
Item 46 is a motion appointing Eleanor Lurie and Margaret Graff to the Commission on the Aging Advisory Council, terms ending March 31st, 2020.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the motion is approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, let's go to committee reports.
Item 51 was considered by the Budget and Finance Subcommittee at a regular meeting on Thursday, April 12th, and was forwarded as a committee report. It was recommended as amended with the same title. It's a resolution to authorize the Sheriff's Department to enter into a second amendment to the existing agreement with Leaders in Community Alternatives, LCA, to extend the contract term by 1 year through April 30th, 2019, with no change to the contract amount, and to approve the Sheriff's Department home detention and electronic monitoring program rules and regulations, and to approve evidence of financial responsibility demonstrated by Program Administrator, LCA, for the 2018 calendar year.
Same House, same call. Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item.
Item 52 was considered by the Land Use and Transportation Committee at a regular meeting on Monday, April 16th, and was forwarded as a committee report. It was recommended as amended with a different title. Item 52 is an ordinance to amend Division 1 of the Transportation Code to establish a violation for powered scooters that are a part of a powered scooter share program to be parked left standing or left unattended on a sidewalk, street, or public right-of-way under the jurisdiction of the Municipal Transportation Agency, or MTA, or Department of Public Works, DPW, without an MTA-issued permit, and to amend the Public Works Code to authorize DPW to take enforcement action to abate or remove unauthorized powered scooters that are not a part of a permitted powered scooter share program.
Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam President. And I would like to first thank my co-sponsors, Supervisors Kim and Ronan, as well as the members of the Land Use Committee, Chair Tang and Supervisor Safai, who sat through a long hearing yesterday wherein this legislation that I crafted with the Municipal Transportation Agency, and I really want to thank Jamie Parks for his help in crafting it. This legislation is virtually identical to a piece of legislation that we unanimously passed last year with regard to stationless bicycle permitting, which we now see around San Francisco, the red jump bikes. I'm frankly kind of amazed by the brouhaha that has ensued. This legislation this is probably the first time where San Francisco was not the guinea pig, really came about because some of our counterparts in Southern California were wrestling with the deployment of these electric scooter devices. As a matter of fact, Santa Monica actually brought criminal charges against one of the companies, Bird, which resulted in a $300,000 settlement some months ago. And I thought for the first time we would actually get ahead of the curve, crafted this legislation in collaboration with the MTA in late February, introduced it here at the board on March the 6th, and then, of course, it went through the normal process to get to committee and here to the full Board of Supervisors. Part of the reason I tell you this tortured tale that you can quickly understand by just looking at Legistar and seeing the legislative history of this is because part of the brouhaha is been really the function of the fact, which was admitted yesterday, that some of these companies have been a little bit fast and loose with the truth. A week ago, they disseminated a press release, breaking news, turned out, I hate to use the word made up, false news, which was that we were invoking emergency procedures, the likes of which are only used in the case of major earthquakes. Nothing could be further from the truth, that this was a ban. That is not true. What this is a basic permitting scheme to allow the professional staff at the MTA to permit these private companies with sensible regulatory conditions and regulatory framework, and to be able to confiscate unpermitted vehicles or devices. I would be the first to say that in the ever-evolving, brave new world of shared mobility technology, that these scooters are certainly something that can help in some instances for some users in San Francisco's complex world of transportation challenges. But that does not mean that we are going to sacrifice the sacred spaces that are our sidewalks, which are for pedestrians, people in wheelchairs, parents with strollers. Those are not the places where these devices moving at 15 miles an hour should be used, and indeed, that is state law. I'm also concerned about individual consumers' safety. It is state law that they wear helmets. I think that the MTA has shown us that they can do a good job in permitting them. They need that authority. And finally, in the era of Cambridge Analytica and Mark Zuckerberg testifying on Capitol Hill for 2 days, safeguarding the private information of consumers is also something wherein I think there is an appropriate governmental interest. And I am hopeful, and indeed there have been representations by city staff from the MTA that permit conditions will also include very stringent safeguards relative to the sharing of people's private information. The admissions from representatives of some of the companies yesterday that their privacy policies are frankly highly problematic, that they can share credit card and location information with third parties really needs to come to an end. And I'm also troubled by, and I'll speak later at roll call for introductions, about the fact that these companies have sponsored legislation in the state assembly to allow them to be used on sidewalks, to negate the helmet requirement, and that is legislation that I'm hopeful the Board of Supervisors will oppose, and I will speak to that later in the meeting. But again, I want to thank my co-sponsors of the committee, my staff, and the MTA for getting this common sense legislation before the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Fewer.
Yes, please add me as a sponsor.
Thank you. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you. Please add me as a sponsor.
Thank you. Supervisor Sheehy.
Yes, I'd like to be added as the co-sponsor too, and I also would like to commend Supervisor Peskin for being ahead of the curve here. But I would like to note, I actually have ridden on one of these, and they're an interesting transit solution for the last mile between mass transit and their destination. I think the way that they've been rolled out has been disastrous, and blocking of sidewalks and riding on sidewalks and not wearing helmets, but properly used, they can really serve a real purpose. We talk about the Lyft, the ride share, the car share companies, and a lot of those trips would disappear. I mean, we could step off, when we go bouncing around from City Hall, we could just hop out, hop on one of these, put on a helmet, but we need the infrastructure. So what does that mean? They need to come with helmets. They should be parked in, they should have parking spots, much like bicycles. We don't allow people to throw a bicycle on the street, so where we have bike parking or can expand bike parking, they should be tethered to that. We should have more protected bike lanes. That's the place where they should be driven, not on the sidewalks. I think in traffic, we all recognize that that's a recipe for disaster. So if we can put in place the right infrastructure, this could be a real innovation and really help us to get people out of cars. I mean, we could step out in our nice clothes and just hop on one and go 3 or 4 blocks and tether to something, and other people could do that in the city too. I took it from the Giants Stadium, from the 49ers, from the Giants Stadium to BART at rush hour, and it was just zip zap. And I think it could really play a real role. But I do want to really signal my appreciation for my colleagues' work in getting us out ahead of the curve on this, because I think this can be a solution, but if it's like some of the ways other technological solutions have been delivered, it's not going to be a good one. And this question of being able to track people and people's privacy has to be paramount for all of us.
Thank you, Supervisor Sheehy. Seeing no other names on the roster, colleagues, can we take this item, same House, same call? Without objection, the ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. It is now past 2:30, and we have 2:30 commendations, and I would like to start with Supervisor Tang for our first commendation.
Okay. Thank you very much, President Breed. So as many of you know or may not know, April is Donate Life Month, and along with introducing a resolution declaring every April as Donate Life Month in San Francisco, I am also recognizing the impact of living donors. And our office began really learning more about organ donation when it began affecting the family of my legislative aide, Ashley Summers, who's here. At 35, her husband, Charlie, was in kidney failure and was on dialysis. He suffers from polycystic kidney disease, which meant his kidneys were growing uncontrollably, with healthy tissue being replaced by disease cysts. He needed a kidney transplant to survive. However, the wait for a deceased donor kidney in San Francisco is about 7 to 10 years, so their family decided to begin the search for a living donor. Living organ donations also typically last longer and have better long-term outcomes for the recipient. As we learned more about organ donation as an office, we began working with Donor Network West to highlight organ donation at this time last year. And I definitely want to thank all of the staff and ambassadors who are here from Donor Network West today. We began a monthly effort to honor deceased organ and tissue donors last fall, and over the past several months, we have recognized more than 30 individuals for giving the gift of life, including our former Mayor, Ed Lee. This month, I would ask our board to adjourn our meeting in honor of Sharon Belmer, who passed away at 66 and impacted the lives of many by generously donating skin. Last July, we recognized 2 living donors for the first time, Cindy and Jeremy Kahn. In fact, Cindy is here with us again today, because while we can easily make the decision to be donors if we pass away, there are some truly remarkable individuals that elect to give part of their body while still living in order to save another person's life. So last September, Ashley's family learned that Charlie would be receiving a kidney from an anonymous living donor. And I will now invite Ashley to share with us her story, and I'd also like to invite up Karen Lynn Light, one of our honorees today. So without objection, if we could let Ms. Summers speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. So Charlie received his new kidney last year on October 10th, and we will always celebrate that day as Charlie's kidney-versary. Charlie describes kidney failure as having the worst flu of your life that never goes away. We were in survival mode as a family. He spent 20 to 25 hours a week physically bound to a dialysis chair for more than a year. He lost the color in his face, had no energy, and was barely able to eat since his kidneys had grown so much. In fact, when they were removed, they were 9 pounds each. We were notified in late September that Charlie was going to receive a living kidney donation. At that time, we did not know that this lovely woman here, Carolyn, was his donor. We were overwhelmed with joy and very curious about who this anonymous person could be. I later learned that Carolyn is a mother of 2, which I was a little bit of a puddle when I learned that. She has a 7-year-old son, Elijah, and a 4-year-old daughter, Josephine. Carolyn couldn't be more knowledgeable about the process of donating a kidney, and that's because she's the director of transplant service at UCSF and has worked in the department for the past 13 years. She knew that she had this extra kidney and felt like donating it even if it was to someone she didn't know was the right thing to do. She wanted to set an example for her children and her community. She met Charlie and my family through UCSF and the National Kidney Foundation. Carolyn had already been through the rigorous testing process at UCSF when she decided to donate her kidney to Charlie anonymously. They were a great match, but Carolyn knew that through paired exchange, she could help more people. But Carolyn didn't just help Charlie and the other recipient in the exchange. Every day, Carolyn's gift helps the lives of more than 150 students. As Charlie is able to more fully dedicate his energy to being a math teacher at Lincoln High School. His cheeks are rosy, he no longer has to do dialysis, and he wakes up every day with a new lease on life thanks to her gift. And the moment I knew that Charlie's life had changed after his transplant was during Thanksgiving, because he told me he was excited for dinner because for the first time in years he was actually hungry. Charlie wrote Carolyn a letter after his surgery, and the two have since met again. Charlie had no idea the day he first met Carolyn that she would one day save his life. Charlie's father passed away when he was 6 due to this horrible disease, but because of what Carolyn did, our daughter, Alice, will be able to spend a long and happy life with her dad. So I'm not sure thank you will ever be enough for what you did.
I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for acknowledging Donate Life Month. Organ shortage is real, and people die every day waiting for organs. Before I started working at UCSF, I didn't know anything about living donation. It didn't really impact my family at all. I knew no one that was waiting for an organ. But throughout my time at UCSF, I learned how safe the procedure really can be, and if you're healthy, in my mind, there's really no reason not to donate. So I had been worked up to be a donor when I saw Ashley and Charlie at a National Kidney Foundation event. Their family was so sweet, and they really spoke to me, and I felt like I would be doing the right thing by donating on behalf of Charlie. And of course, I did the paired exchange so that we could help more people. So my kidney ended up going to an 18-year-old in Southern California, and then her dad, who was incompatible, donated to Charlie. So 2 people were transplanted, and I recovered very quickly, and I'm just really glad that you guys are bringing awareness to this, because a lot of people might not know about living donation, and if they could hear my story and other stories, they might be more likely to donate. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Again, I don't think that thank you is enough at all. We were also, curious about who this anonymous donor was, so it's really lovely to see you in person today. So really, thank you so much for saving Charlie's life. And of course, thank you, Ashley, as a result, for becoming a huge advocate on this issue. Next, I'd like to invite up Dave Andrade. So if you can please come on up. Dave is part of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, and thank you to Dr. Tim Seelig and some of the 250 members of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus who are here today to support Dave. Dave joined the Gay Men's Chorus in the fall of 2016. At one of their practices, Dave's conductor introduced a special guest who had been absent for a while due to health complications. Ross Woodall had been singing with the chorus for over a decade, but had to take medical leave due to liver failure. He had been waiting for a transplant for 8 years. He had moved to San Francisco 25 years ago, and within 2 years of moving had been diagnosed with AIDS and given only months to live. With no immune system, a virus attacked his retinas and left him permanently blind. But his story changed 3 months later when new therapies allowed his health to improve along with a better prognosis. However, by 2010, his life-saving medications had damaged his liver beyond repair, and he needed a liver transplant to survive. Despite over 7 years of efforts, Ross was unable to find a donor. That is, until he turned to his fellow members of the Gay Men's Chorus. However, even with hundreds of members and over a dozen men who were tested, Ross still did not have a match until Dave came along. So at that practice where Dave first saw Ross, Ross talked about how he needed a liver donor. Dave talked to Ross and later decided he would fill out the form from UCSF as an interested candidate, and Dave took the process one step at a time, surprised and excited at each step that he was advancing. So typically you need to be an incredibly healthy individual in order to donate an organ. Now luckily, Dave is an avid athlete and even competes in triathlons with my colleague, Supervisor Stephanie. In late fall of 2016, Dave and Ross were notified that they were a suitable match, and the surgery was scheduled for January 2017. So Dave visited Ross every day to get his steps in and had the second fastest discharge in the history of the liver transplant program, a mere 95 hours after he awoke from surgery. Dave and Ross are part of each other's family now, and they're both upper second tenors, the exact same part in the choir. Ross has joined us via FaceTime, and Dave's parents, Jerry and Kathy, are also joining us here today, and I know they're very proud of their son. Now, before I invite Dave to say a few words, I know my colleague, Supervisor Stephanie, would also like to make a few remarks.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. I received a text message from Dave a few weeks ago, and he said, I'm being honored at the Board of Supervisors, and I think you might have something to do with it. And I wish I could have taken credit for it, but I said, whoever's honoring you is absolutely brilliant, and of course, it's Supervisor Tang, so that fits. I just wanted to say, I met Dave in 2014. We were both training for our first triathlon together with Team in Training while raising money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, a cause both near and dear to our hearts. And we bonded over that first triathlon in Hawaii, as many triathletes do, given what we go through. And, he went on to do his first full Ironman with Team in Training, and that's a 2.5-mile swim, open water swim, 112-mile bike, and a full marathon after. So you have an amazing human being standing here before you today, everyone. And I just have to say that my friendship with Dave has been one of the greatest gifts of Team in Training. He is one of the most loving and giving people you will ever meet. And when I competed in my first half Ironman in Santa Cruz in the fall of 2016, it was Dave who got me through it. Even though he was competing, he realized I was struggling on the run, and he never left my side, and I will never forget that. When I heard about Dave donating half of his liver to someone he had never met to save this person's life, it was one of those moments when you're in absolute awe of someone, but not surprised in the least. And I just want to add that, Dave is one of the most beautiful human beings I have ever met. I feel so extremely lucky to call him my friend, and I love that he's a member of the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. I've gone to the Christmas program ever since I've met Dave, and that was life-changing, just watching that incredible performance. I recommend it to everyone. You have not lived until you've seen Silent Night being signed. And one more thing I'd just like to point out, too, that Dave is Italian-American. So thank you again for your contributions to the city and county of San Francisco. I love you, Dave.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you, Supervisor Tang and the rest of the Board of Supervisors for having us here today. Supervisor Tang kind of gave away a lot of my backstory here, so I probably won't regurgitate a lot of that. But one of the things I did want to mention about being in the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus, shortly after I had joined, somebody had brought to my attention an adage that really has stuck with me ever since, and it's, people have a biological family and a logical family. Sometimes they're one and the same, and sometimes they're not. And especially for members of the LGBTQ community, if they're disowned by their biological family, they're rejected, they need to find their logical family who will be there and support them. And no better example I can think of logical family than when Ross was looking for a liver, and so many men of the chorus stepped up, offered to help, take him to appointments, go through the donor process screening. Like Supervisor Tang said, there were about a dozen men who just were ruled out for various reasons, but it just so happened that I was the logical family member who would end up being the match. And on the subject of family, the chorus, whenever we have loved ones or friends of chorus members who come to support their singer, either at our rehearsals or a performance, we like to sing a special setting of an Irish blessing for them to officially welcome them into our logical family. And so in keeping with that tradition and that honor, we'd like to sing that for you today. We need another E flat? Okay.
May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm on your face, and the rain fall soft on your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.
Thank you all.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you to Dave, Cindy, and Donor Network West, the Gayman's Course. Thank you so much.
Thank you all again so much for being here to the Gay Men's Course, and thank you, Supervisor Tang, for that incredible award, and look forward to seeing you at your next concert. Thank you all so much. And with that, we have another commendation that we'd like to acknowledge. Supervisor Yee is next.
All right. Thank you, President Bree. I'm going to do my solo now. That was very lovely. How do I follow that, right? Whew. Okay. Okay. Happy Week of the Young Child. This week marks the 47th annual Week of the Young Child. And on behalf of CPAC, which is the Child Care Planning and Advisory Council, who care and providers who care and educate our young children, and for all the young children and their families, including the 2,500 0 to 5 children of low-income families who are on the child care waiting list, subsidies waiting list. Happy Week of the Young Child. And on behalf of all these people, I'd like to have Bev Milligan come up and accept the award for all these people. Is Bev here? There you are. The Week of the Young Child was established in 1971 by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, recognizing that the early childhood years laid the foundation for children's success in schools and later life. The Week of the Young Child is a time to plan how we as legislators, as citizens of a community, of a state and a nation, will better meet the needs of all young children and their families. On Sunday, I attended the kickoff of the week at the Providers Recognition Brunch, which was attended by 250 of our top early educators from across the city. I was again inspired by their dedication, but in some ways it was bittersweet. The fact that these educators are our lowest paid educators, but remain in the field to teach our San Francisco children often means sacrificing themselves. Family child care providers, for instance, are open before parents go to work and are open after they get off, the parents that is. Some commute more than 1.5 hours to work in the city, many qualifying for public assistance. Early educators are the backbone of our early education system, and we need to honor them as professionals. They allow families to stay in San Francisco. Week of the Young Child is a time to recognize that we all have a responsibility to enhance opportunities for children. In honor of the Week of the Young Child, this Sunday, from 1 to 4 at Parque Niños Unidos, is the annual Dia de los Niños, Dia de los Libros festival. This fun festival has live music, free books, and family-friendly activities. Tomorrow's rally, in my clearly biased opinion, is the best rally of the year around City Hall, outside of City Hall. And that's going to happen at 10:30. Really, what is called the annual walk around the block. Hundreds of children, 0 to 5, early education providers, families, centers, and family child care programs will be walking around the block to raise awareness and attention to the needs of young children and their families, and to recognize the early childhood programs. Although the largest walk around the block takes place here at City Hall, many centers and family child care providers are doing mini walks in their own neighborhoods throughout the city to raise awareness, enthusiasm, and gain support for our programs. To accept the award, again, on behalf of the early education community, I'd like to recognize again Beverly Milligan, who is the executive director of the C5 Children's School, and also the chair of the Quality Committee at the Child Care Planning and Advisory Council. Would you like to say a word, Bev?
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. It's a pleasure to be here today and to accept this acknowledgement on behalf of the Child Care Planning and Advisory Council during this wonderful Week of the Young Child. I was so moved by the two groups that received acknowledgement, and one of the things that those of us in early childhood want to work toward is having young children have that kind of feeling toward their friends and colleagues as they grow into adults and participate in our civil society. So the children of San Francisco are fortunate to have a very good level of funding and support, and we can do more. As Supervisor Yu was pointing out about how many people make large sacrifices to be here, and these are, after all, our future citizens of this country, and are going to carry on in the later years. So again, those many of us in the field feel like that we can never do enough for children, so we're going to keep working on that. And at the same time, we want to say we know we can do more, and we hope you'll join us in celebrating children this week. And thank you. We are appreciative of the acknowledgement of children.
Angela.
Okay, we have a late addition to our commendations today. Supervisor Ronan.
Hi, if Sherry, Jamie, and Leslie could come up to the microphone. Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. I wanted the opportunity here for the entire Board of Supervisors to express my immense gratitude to the St. Vincent de Paul Society of San Francisco and the wonderful, incredible staff at the 1515 South Van Ness Navigation Center. Since the center was opened in June of 2017, in the nearly 11 months since its opening, the center has served more than 580 residents, and I know that you've changed so many of those 580 lives. You have provided not only basic necessities such as food and clothing and shelter, but also access to on-site support services provided by Brilliant Corners and downtown streets. The center has been a resounding success by almost any measure. Despite some initial resistance from the surrounding neighbors, now those neighbors are enthusiastically supporting this navigation center, and it so much has to do with the incredible job that you did running one of the best navigation centers in the city. The number of tent encampments has been drastically reduced, the surrounding streets have been cleaned up, and safety patrols have provided much more security to the neighborhood. We have heard from neighbors, residents, and visitors about the positive impact the center has made on the neighborhood. It's a place where each individual is treated with dignity and respect. Many of the guests have experienced great tragedies, setbacks, losses of every kind, but they arrive to your center with insurmountable challenges or seemingly insurmountable challenges. But the way that you treat each individual there and the work that you do to change their lives is extraordinary, and it works. Most importantly, the people served by the Navigation Center have been given a respite from the streets and have been offered some hope during their darkest hours. I want to thank you again for your incredible hard work. I don't know what I would have done as a supervisor of this district without you. It was the #1 issue facing my district when I came into office, and we went from 260 tents to today hovering around 60. And it was because you ran an excellent navigation center that we were able to change hearts and minds in the neighborhood. So with that, I want to honor your entire staff. So I have a certificate for everyone working at the Navigation Center, but I also wanted to give the opportunity to you all to express your words, and thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Supervisor Ronan. We appreciate the acknowledgement. As many know, St. Vincent de Paul has been in the city and county of San Francisco since 1863. In 1991, we started our homeless services. A couple years ago, we were asked to work at Pier 80, which is our first program where we had low barriers. We took those lessons that we learned at doing Pier 80 and moved that over to 1515 South Van Ness. So I'm not the one that should be thanked. It should be my staff here who are here. I want them to stand up and be recognized. Those are the ones that come every single day to work with our clients. And so we definitely appreciate the acknowledgement because it is hard work. But Jaime and Leslie.
Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Benedict, and I am the program director at the South Van Ness Navigation Center. And Shari is our executive director for St. Vincent de Paul. I want to commend you, Supervisor Ronan, for the initiative and your passion for working for those who are disenfranchised in your neighborhood. It is an honor for me to come back to that area. I actually grew up like 2 blocks away from Mitchell's Ice Cream, so it's really great to be back in that neighborhood. Really proud to also work with a staff that is primarily from San Francisco. The case management is here. And I would be remiss not to mention one of the biggest success of working in the Navigation Center has to have amazing partnerships with Brilliant Corners, and their staff is also here, and downtown streets. I also want to just take an opportunity to thank the entire board for your commitment to improving the quality of life of individuals who are currently unhoused. Supervisor Kim also supports us in District 6. We operate 5th and Bryant, which is Multi-Service Center South, And I'd like to take this opportunity to also invite you to come see us there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and that concludes our commendations for the day. It is now 3 o'clock. Madam Clerk, let's go to our 3 p.m. special order.
Items 47 through 50 comprise the appeal of determination of exemption from environmental review for 590 Leland Avenue. Item 47 is the hearing of persons interested in the determination of exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act issued as a categorical exemption by the Planning Department February 12, 2015 for the proposed project at 590 Leland Avenue to demolish an existing church building and construct 5 new single-family homes, 3 new 3-story single-family residences with roof decks at their respective 3rd stories, and 2 new 3-story single-family residences. Item 48 is the motion to affirm that the proposed project is categorically exempt from further environmental review. Item 49, motion to conditionally reverse the Planning Department's determination that this project is categorically exempt, subject to the adoption of written findings. And item 50 is a motion to direct the preparation of findings.
Colleagues, we have before us now the appeal of a CEQA categorical exemption for this project at 590 Leland Avenue in District 10. For this hearing, we will be considering the adequacy, accuracy, sufficiency, and completeness of Planning Department's determination that the proposed project at 590 Leland Avenue is categorically exempt from environmental review under CEQA. Without objection, we will proceed as follows. Up to 10 minutes for a presentation by the appellant or the appellant representative. Up to 2 minutes per speaker in support of the appeal. Up to 10 minutes for a presentation by the Planning Department. Up to 10 minutes for the project sponsor or their representative. Up to 2 minutes per speaker in opposition of the appeal. And finally, 3 minutes for rebuttal by the appellant or the appellant representative. Colleagues, if there are no objections, we will proceed in this way. This hearing is now open, and I will turn this over to Supervisor Cohen for opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's kind of a little bit with a heavy heart that we are here to take on this issue. I'd hope that we would be able to resolve some of the things that you're going to hear about today in a community forum. But nonetheless, we've gathered to hear about a project that is scheduled to be built. Should this hearing, should we affirm the findings of the Planning Department? The location is 590 Leland Street, and Leland is a beautiful street in the valley, in Visitation Valley, in one of the most southernmost parts of San Francisco. It's absolutely a wonderful, charming part of the city where, believe it or not, prices are still affordable. And so I thank you for hearing this item. The Planning Department's issuance of a categorical exemption under CEQA is being challenged here by the appellant, an appellant who I have tremendous respect for. Her name is Fran Martin. She's the founder of the Viz Valley Planning Alliance. She's done a lot of very, very hard work on the ground over the years prior to my election, and ensuring that Visitation Valley gets its fair share, its attention, resources, and planning dollars. Sadly, I am in agreement with her with many of the issues that she's bringing up today, that it just still doesn't feel like we're getting what we are entitled to as being a part of San Francisco in terms of getting the full experience from the Planning Department. We've been fighting for years to get a planner dedicated back on the corridor to assist us with the businesses and, most importantly, to assist us with the vacancies. And largely, we haven't had anyone in this position since Craziatano left several years ago. I think it was in 2011. But with that said, Fran has been an organizing force. She's been instrumental in many of the projects that are happening in this part of San Francisco. The basis that the project that she is contending is that this project is inappropriately considered an infill project. There will be harm from the development on biological resources, and the view corridor from public land will be negatively impacted by the project. Now, with that, I'd like to begin this appeal hearing, and I'd like to turn it back over to the clerk of the board to begin this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Okay, we will open up this hearing. Now I'd like to ask the appellant or the appellant representative to come forward. You will have up to 10 minutes for a presentation.
Before I start, can I ask how I put these on?
Ma'am, could you, if you have any questions, could you speak into the microphone so we can hear what you're saying? There's a microphone at the podium.
Sorry, I didn't want to take up my 10 minutes doing that.
Okay.
My name is Fran Martin, and I'm affiliated with the Visitation Valley Planning Alliance and Visitation Valley Greenway. Thank you, Supervisor Cohen, for your introduction. Nearly 20 years ago, our community created the Planning Alliance in response to Home Depot plans to build a big box store at Schlage Lock. Since then, the Planning Alliance has fought for a master plan for the valley, which has always been denied. Along the way, we initiated and worked with Supervisor Sophie Maxwell to create the Viz Valley redevelopment area and developers' impact fees in the master planning process for Executive Park, among other accomplishments. Our long-term support of high-density housing at Schlage Lock, Sunnydale, and Executive Park should silence any accusations of our being NIMBYs. Our neighborhood welcomes high-density housing that wealthier neighborhoods do not want without getting the amenities taken for granted in other neighborhoods. What we get is further neglect. The award-winning Greenway and outdoor classroom test to our commitment preserving open space for our neighborhood. We have advocated for park and streetscape improvements throughout the valley, including working with Fluff to plant over 200 trees. We do not want to be here today. By we, I mean the over 200 people who signed a petition against the 590 development and local and citywide environmental and outdoor education groups. If this project were located mid-block, we would not be opposing it. However, it is a threat to open space. The city has abrogated its responsibility to our neighborhood and has dealt with the 590 lead on the issue to the detriment of smart community planning. They have forgotten their duties to serve the public and plan for the greater good. We've been forced to be here because the Planning Commission has upheld the categorical exemption for this project. Here are photos, I'm going to show photos at the end. Unfortunately, my colleague Linda Schaefer is in London, so I will now read her synopsis of the problem we have with planning secret analysis. Okay, this is all quoted. As you can see from the photos, it is incontrovertible that the houses proposed for construction along Raymond Avenue will block views from public parkland. There are various statements in the city's general plan, all listed in material prepared for previous hearings, saying this is a no-no. Prior to 2014, blocking views from public parkland would have been considered a significant and unmitigable effect under CEQA, and no project that proposed doing such a thing would have been granted a categorical exemption. Unfortunately, this is 2018, and the state is operating under new rules codified in the Public Resources Code, PRC, according to PRC Section 21099D1. Quote, if a project is found to qualify as an infill development, it is exempt from analysis of aesthetics, including views, under CEQA. Planning is calling this project an infill site project and claiming the loss of views does not need to be analyzed. The appellants have three arguments about that. Number one, in its actions, planning has been inconsistent in treating the project as infill. Most notably, in response to requests from the Planning Commission in January 2017, planning staff directed the project sponsors to produce a view analysis, which they did. Why if views don't need to be analyzed? 2, it is not entirely clear that the site qualifies as an infill site. There are two parts to the definition in PRC section 21099D, as demonstrated in a separate communication. It clearly does not meet one of them. So planning must be claiming that the presence of a church building on the lower part of the upsloping site constitutes previous development. This seems a stretch. Number 3, even assuming it is an infill site, why is planning not invoked or at least mentioned section D2A, which says, quote, this subdivision, meaning the part of the code that restricts CEQA analysis of infill sites, does not affect, change, or modify the authority of a lead agency to consider aesthetic impacts pursuant to local design review ordinances or other discretionary powers provided by other laws or policies, unquote. Or section 21099, I can't read it, E, which says this section does not affect the authority of a public agency to establish or adopt thresholds of significance that are more protective of the environment, unquote. The appellants argue that the site doesn't qualify in any real sense as infill, at least not in the sense that an ordinary person would understand the word infill to mean, and that in any case there are exceptional circumstances here that override any technical argument claiming that the loss of views and open space in a high-needs neighborhood don't count. Now back to me. Everyone in the valley lacks adequate access to McLaren Park, the second largest park in the city, due to steep topography and fortress-like walls of housing and schools bordering the park. In particular, Sunnydale residents, the most disenfranchised of us all, have no easy access to open space, although they live adjacent to McLaren Park. Planning has ignored its own general plans, recreation, open space, and urban design elements, which overwhelmingly support our arguments against the 590 development on the basis of loss of views from public space and shadows on public land. Loss of flat, ADA accessible open space that is especially needed for elders living in the John King Senior Housing in the same block as the proposed development, and adverse effects on the easternmost sand dune in the city makes the proposed project egregious and illogical in terms of community planning. Once built, forever lost. The parcel of land at 590 Leland is part of the largest strip of land from the middle school to Holland Avenue, which constitutes the only remaining easily accessible McLaren Park open space for our residents to enjoy nature. We're working there towards creating an environmental education center, including the community garden as its centerpiece, along with the adjacent PUC rain garden and a native plant botanical garden. 5 mega homes are not needed in the middle of it. Imagine Lafayette, Alta Plaza, Dolores, or Buena Vista parks with housing bisecting them. This is an issue of social, economic, environmental, and aesthetic justice. Our neighborhood is not only San Francisco's forgotten neighborhood, it is also one of the most disenfranchised and powerless. We are expecting 5,000 to 10,000 new units of housing in the next decade or so. We understand the importance of affordable, high-density housing. We see the children who work within our outdoor programs to live in their projects suffer from inferior housing and lack of opportunities. What we do not need is $2 million homes blocking a significant portion of the only open space available to them on the pathway to school. San Francisco should no longer be a party to harming our neighborhood. It is time to start helping us rather than being part of the problem. We do our part. Please do yours. Now I'm going to show some photos. This it's kind of difficult to read. Shows the site, which is here, and this is all topographically inaccessible to McLaren Park. The golf course is here, and this is Sunnydale Housing, which cannot get into the golf course. Here's the site in question, and here's the area from the middle school down to Hahn Avenue, and John King Senior Housing is right there. This shows the impact of shadows. Whoops, well, anyway. This is the site, and these are the shadows that will stretch across that land. This also shows the shadows from a two-story building stretching across where the 3 buildings will be going on Raymond. And if they were 1 story higher, it would go out even further. Here's the, well, I don't know how you could do this, but anyway, this shows how this is existing conditions, and this is how the views would be obstructed. This shows obstruction from these. This is the site, and this is where the views would be obstructed. This is the site existing now, and you can see this is the only flat space. To the left is, John King Senior Housing. I've got photos of elders walking down the middle of the street, and they have nowhere to go in the area. Here it shows how it's flat there. Here's another view from the site. Another view. One thing that came up was there's maps of most important views in the city, and they're graded as excellent, good, and average, something like that. Ours are only average, and this is one of the few areas where we have views from public space. Otherwise, it's all housing, or it's too steep to get to the site. And what else? Anyway, I'll finish early, give you guys a break. These are the children we work with. I want you to remember them because they're the ones we're speaking for today. And I'm going to leave that there while our other speakers speak. Okay.
There's no applause. No applause.
Thank you. We will now open it up to public comment. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak in support of the appeal? This is your time now.
Hi, I'm Phyllis Chu, and thank you, Supervisor Cohen, for all your support for us. We really appreciate it. This is a very underserved Visitation Valley community, and this 590 Leland site will have over 200,000 square feet of 5 mansions that will split up on various areas of this site to remain as daily reminders as multi-million-dollar haves and versus the have-nots. The have-nots have to go and walk from the middle school and the senior housing area down through, right now they use a stairway that's right on the church site, which will be gone otherwise, effectively cutting them off from the valley below, which is a rain garden that's being put into the community garden, plus an amphitheater for outdoor education. And right across the street, it goes into the recreation area with the swimming pool, basketball courts, and flows into Sunnydale projects, which are being rehabbed for the people who are there. We have worked so hard to try to keep this place, keep the kids from the Sunnydale area from having more violence in their lives and disrupting themselves and their families and really just tearing apart not only their families, but also the surrounding community. It impacts us all. And so we've been working with the police. This site right now is mainly undeveloped over an ancient sand dune with some rare native plants. It's adjacent to McLaren Park right across the street. And of course, then people can get onto the, as you know, steeper pathways to get up into the park itself. The project, the 590 Leland project, would effectively cut everybody else off so it no longer flows through. Just like, it's like taking a forest and putting a road through it, and you effectively cut off two sides completely so they become two separate things, not just one whole flowing community. For what I am wanting to say is, I'd love to see the supervisors who have the power to.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Barnett. I'm a 20-year resident of Visitation Valley, and I've been extensively involved with land use issues over the years. I was on the Visitation Valley redevelopment CAC back when we had redevelopment for the duration of that body. I also participated extensively with Sunnydale, Mercy Housing, and the planning efforts there. I am opposing this development and, questioning, and Supervisor Cohen, thank you so much for acknowledging sort of the procedural aspect of this and maybe the lack of complete consideration. I really appreciate that. On paper, I can see how this is a perfect space for 5 homes. It was legitimately acquired. The developer went through their process to do this. But this is an opportunity sliding out of the grasp of the city. Visitation Valley often remark to people who become acquainted with the neighborhood how it was developed without a view of how density would reach out to that part of the city in time. And so I welcome the density of housing that we have planned, and I think that this particular site is really critical for all the reasons that Fran and Phyllis were mentioning about park access, view corridors, a site that's potentially ADA accessible for people when there are so few. Those open spaces in Visitation Valley, imagine if Patricia's Green down in Hayes Valley was opened up for development legitimately and somebody bought it and, proposed 5 homes versus what it serves for that community. This is the potential that we're giving up if we develop this land this way. It's really beautiful. I wish as fellow San Franciscans, I could take each of you and walk the neighborhood and show you how I know the neighborhood and how I know its connection to the park. And this is a key piece we're about to lose if this goes forward as planned. So thank you very much for considering this issue, and I hope that you'll help us find a good resolution.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Jim Grouden. I live in Visitation Valley, and I am a member of the Planning Alliance, Visitation Valley Planning Alliance, and I designed some of the aspects of the Greenway, Visitation Valley Greenway. And I just want to take a couple minutes of your time to talk about aesthetics and views. I also teach the children at the Greenway, and it is important for them to have this open space views in the valley. We are so deprived of so many things the other neighborhoods have. And I would say we're pretty much neglected by the rest of the city. And I just wanted to close with saying that when we have our Planning Alliance meetings, we take in consideration of all the development that's going on there, and we have to consider the future residents of the valley. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Supervisors. My name's Linda Lighthizer, and I'm here to speak because of the tragedy that this situation brings us to, of loss of land that up till now, up until the last few years when this parcel was purchased, we all believed was part of McLaren Park and open space that would live on forever. We have found that this situation is not the first time. In the 1980s, there was another parcel within McLaren Park perimeter where people also assumed it was part of the park because it was open and people were using it as if it was a park. In the case of 590 Leland, even some of the gardeners and park staff who'd been there for many years assumed that the land behind the little church was public land. So it came as a huge shock to all of us when this parcel was purchased at a very small amount of money and at an auction. Had we had the opportunity to know that parcels adjacent to parkland could be purchased this way and then developed, took us all by surprise. So we've been working at this for years. We are so committed to McLaren Park for the open space that it needs to be for all the development that they're having in the Southeast. We're asking developers to help us mitigate the problems of parkland being adjacent to properties and not being able to access them. So I'm hoping that it's not too late, that this body can have some interested solutions that we could all work on together to protect the park from further erosion by development, but also to save this parcel. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Audrey Roderick. I'm the Executive Director of Urban Sprouts. As we know, this community will see an influx of thousands of units in the coming years and need to work to save any available and limited open space still within the valley. Urban Sprouts has been working in partnership with Mercy Housing, the Viz Valley Greenway, Viz Valley Planning Alliance, and the residents of Sunnydale to build and activate open spaces through this extended construction period, increasing access and opportunities to grow food by and for the community. This past year, we have begun to hire and train Sunnydale youth to build and manage these spaces. And with a $1 million investment from DCYF over the next 5 years, we'll be continuing to grow our green job training program, increasing paid opportunities for Sunnydale and Valley youth to connect our urban farm at June Jordan, the largest school garden in San Francisco, to the network of community gardens within Sunnydale, to the Greenway and the gardens of Viz Valley, culminating with the construction of a garden resource center and tool lending library to support and grow all Valley residents. We are committed to continuing to find resources and support to manage and maintain these vital open spaces. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Hunter Reidenauer. I've lived in San Francisco for about 8 years, and I've lived in Visitation Valley for about 6 or 7 months, and Fran was the first person I met there, and she immediately introduced me to the Visitation Valley Greenway, and I was blown away because it was just an amazing space, and I've really fallen in love with the area since then, and I've done a lot of exploring, walking through McLaren Park, and having explored this space where this site is up for debate, I see potential for a project that would stimulate more growth in the community, similar to what the Greenway has done, which Fran has organized and supported along with many others. And I see potential for something that would feed the community, including a garden and these sorts of things that are actually going to engage the citizens instead of nothing against housing, but I just don't see what it's going to bring to the community, what it's going to introduce to the community, as opposed to creating a structure that will create shade and basically form a wedge in the structure of this very, very important and very delicate community that needs your nurturing. So with that in mind, just support the growth of our community gardens. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Connie Walding, and I've been volunteering in Viz Valley for about 10 or 15 years, working closely with Fran, and I am all for continuing and not developing that open space because I think it's very important for the integrity of the neighborhood. I'm going to make it very short. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak on behalf of the appellant? Now's your opportunity.
Good afternoon. My name is Jen, and I'm here to support preserving open space in McLean Park that should be accessible to my family and community. I have lived in Visitation Valley for over 20 years and have watched that progress of the Greenway blossom throughout these years, and thanks to our community's efforts. Everything we all have done has been for the good of the community, especially for our elders and children. I believe you should not allow construction at 590 near that will create lots of views and open space. Please help our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment in support of the appeal? Seeing none, public comment is closed. And we will now turn to the Planning Department. You will have up to 10 minutes for a presentation.
Good afternoon, President Breed, members of the board. I'm Josh Pollack, Senior Environmental Planner with the Planning Department. Joining me today are Lisa Gibson, Environmental Review Officer, Rick Cooper, Principal Environmental Planner, and Esmeralda Hardinez, Senior Planner. The item before you is an appeal of a categorical exemption for the proposed project at 590 Leland Avenue. To provide you with a brief summary, the project involves demolition of an existing church building and construction of 5 new single-family homes.
Before you get into the brief summary of the project, can you please just define for us what exactly are the limitations or the parameters that we are restricted to review this project under? What specifically can we do and can we not do when it comes to CEQA? It's just, I want to just start the framework there because
Sure.
I think there's a little bit of misinformation out there, and I want to make sure that we are able to correct the record. And then you can go into like the project overview. But specifically, this body is charged to do what? This is a CEQA appeal, and what does that mean?
Thank you for the question through the chair. So the decision before the board today is whether to uphold the department's decision to issue a categorical exemption and deny the appeal, or to return the project to the department for additional environmental review.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the project involves demolition of an existing church building and construction of 5 new single-family homes at 590 Leland in the Visitation Valley neighborhood. 3 of the residences would front Raymond Avenue, while 2 of the residences would front Leland Avenue. The project is adjacent to McLaren Community Garden, which is currently being renovated, and is across the street from McLaren Park. On February 12, 2015, the department determined that the project was categorically exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, under Class 32, which applies to infill development projects. Following a full discretionary review analysis on January 18, 2018, the Planning Commission approved the proposed project. The appellant raises issues related to biological resources, views, shadows, site acquisition by recreation and parks, among other issues. The Planning Department has carefully considered the concern raised, and we conclude that the categorical exemption for the project was appropriately issued. The appellant has provided no evidence to support the assertions that the project would have significant impacts that would disqualify the project from being exempt from environmental review. We would like to briefly summarize our responses to each issue. Regarding biological resources, the appellant asserts that the project would affect 2 sensitive plant species, including the San Francisco spineflower and the California croton at and adjacent to the project site. As described in the Planning Department's appeal response, this is incorrect. Consultant biologists surveyed the project site 3 separate times, prepared a detailed inventory of 34 plant species on the site, and found neither the San Francisco spineflower nor the California croton at the project site. On March 9, 2018, Planning Department staff, consultant biologists, and the appellant met at the project site. No San Francisco spineflower or California croton plants were observed on the project site. 2 California croton plants were found outside the project site on Recreation and Parks owned land. The project would not disturb the 2 California croton plants on the adjacent parcel. Staging areas for construction would occur along the Raymond Avenue and Leland Avenue frontages and would not occur west of the property line on Recreation and Parks owned land. No easements have been sought or granted to stage project construction on Recreation and Parks property. In addition, the project site would be fenced off during construction, which would prevent disturbance to the existing California croton plants on Recreation and Parks managed land. The proposed willow fence that would be constructed by the project sponsor along the western edge of the parcel at 589 Leland would be lower in height than the existing trees along the property line, and the proposed residential development would be set back about 30 feet from the property line at that location. Therefore, the project would not have a significant impact on the 2 California croton plants on the adjacent parcel. With regard to aesthetics, the appellant argues there was an incomplete analysis of the loss of views. In fact, as stated in the department's response, aesthetics were not considered as part of the environmental review precisely because this is what CEQA requires for residential infill projects within a transit priority area like 590 Leland. The project clearly meets the criteria of Public Resources Code section 21099D1, which mandates eliminating aesthetics from CEQA review for qualified projects. This includes the criterion of being on an infill site. As defined by this provision of the CEQA statute, infill site includes a lot that is located within an urban area that has previously been developed. The project site was previously developed with a church and therefore meets this definition. For these reasons, the appellant's claims about inadequate analysis of visual resources are without merit. It should be noted, however, that effects on views were considered as part of the discretionary review for this project, which found that there would be minimal loss of the extent and quality of views from the locations analyzed. Esmeralda can answer any questions you may have about the discretionary review hearing. Regarding shadows, the appellant states that the shadow analysis in the CEQA determination is inadequate. As stated in the department's response, Planning Code Section 295 restricts new shadow upon public open spaces under jurisdiction of recreation and parks by any structure exceeding 40 feet in height. However, the proposed buildings would range in height from about 24 feet to 32 feet. Thus, the CEQA determination properly did not analyze shadow effects on the adjacent parcel pursuant to Section 295. In addition, the project shadow itself was found not to have a substantial effect on the total amount of sunlight the California croton plants would receive throughout the year and would therefore not affect the viability of the plants. Lastly, the appellant suggests that the exemption should have analyzed the possibility of site acquisition by recreation and parks. However, the consideration of the value of site for potential uses other than the residential uses of the project is not required under CEQA. In conclusion, for the reasons stated in our appeal response and at this hearing, the department continues to find that the CEQA determination complies with the requirements of CEQA and the categorical exemption is the appropriate environmental review determination. The appellant has not provided any substantial evidence that there is a reasonable possibility of significant environmental impacts due to unusual circumstances. Therefore, I urge you to uphold the department's CEQA determination and deny the appeal. This concludes my presentation. Planning staff is available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you. I actually have three simple questions that I want to direct to the planning staff. The appellant has raised concerns about the impact on street views and what I understand to be the view corridor. From behind the project site on Raymond Avenue in the southern direction, my question is there anything in CEQA that would allow you to consider views in your determination about this project's eligibility?
My name is Lisa Gibson, Environmental Review Officer, and through the chair, I'd like to respond to Supervisor Cohen. To answer your question, under CEQA, we are prohibited from considering aesthetic impacts. As noted by Josh Pollack in his presentation, CEQA does prohibit us from considering aesthetics impacts for projects that qualify as infill development projects within a transit-oriented site.
Thank you. My second question is there, well, it's more of a little bit of a statement first than a question. There's a senior center and a Visitation Valley Middle School that's located not from the project site. Does this project disrupt access to public lands for those community members?
No, it does not. The project was basically designed to allow continued access to the park to occur.
Thank you. That's important. And then my third question is the appellant claims that there is a loss of ADA accessible space. Can you speak to the project's impact on the ADA accessibility on public property?
Regarding accessibility, the appellant states that a portion of the project along Raymond Avenue could be used as ADA accessible open space. The project is located on a private parcel and would not affect public open space or ADA accessible open space. In addition, the most level portion of the subject parcel along Raymond Avenue is uneven and is not ADA accessible.
All right, next question about shadows on public public open space. So the appellant claims that the site could have, that the appellant claims that the development will cause a shadow on the pathway and the native plant landscaping. Could you address that, please?
So regarding shadows, the appellant states the shadow analysis is inadequate. So when we're looking at shadows under the Planning Code Section 295, any new shadow is restricted by any structure that is exceeding 40 feet in height. So the proposed buildings range in height from about 24 to 32 feet. So the CEQA determination properly did not analyze shadow effects on the adjacent parcel.
So one of the, I think, stronger arguments that the appellant makes about brings it to our attention about infill, and considers this to be an infill project. And I think that that is where the greatest discrepancy rests between the appellant and the planning department's determination. From what I understand from numerous meetings with the appellant and other community members is that they are interpreting this particular parcel as one unique parcel, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and that there is an existing, we all established that there's an existing construction. It's a church, an abandoned church now at this point. And you guys are proposing saying that this is actually not one parcel, but three. Is that right? Or five, 5 parcels. Can you explain to me how on the map, when you look at it, it looks like one, but you're arguing that it's 5?
On July 14, 2014, Lot 019, which is the lot that the existing church currently is on, was subdivided into lots 061, 062, 063, 064, and 065. And the project sponsor who's here can speak more to the history of how these lots existed. They were previously existed as 5, were merged into 1, and then subdivided subsequently in 2014.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I want to say that the appellate says that it's 1, and the planning department is saying that it's 5. So I just want to correct that. Thank you for that clarification. I have no further questions, colleagues. I don't know if you have any questions at this particular point. I think this is pretty open and shut.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Seeing no names on the roster, I would like to ask for the project sponsor to come forward. You will have up to 10 minutes for presentation.
Member of the Board of Supervisors, my name is David Rubenstein. I'm one. Is that better?
Yeah, David, we know you have a big voice, so don't be shy. Now's not the time to be shy.
Members of the Board of Supervisors, my name is David Rubenstein. I'm one of the sponsors of this project. We're asking to build 5 good-sized single-family homes. Not another tower, fancy tower with 1 bedrooms, but the kind of, not $4 to $8 million home, but the kind of homes, single-family homes, decent size that the city can use. We purchased the property. You were just told that we purchased it in an auction. We purchased the property via the MLS. It was listed. The owner listed it. We saw it on the listing. Anybody could have looked at it. It was for sale. It was bought through escrow. There was nothing here that was, again, it's one of those misleading things that I want to fix and correct in the 10 minutes that we have. It was on the MLS. It was advertised. Anybody could have purchased it. This property is 5 lots, as you've heard. We met with the planning department. We did all the right steps that one should do. We met with the planning departments for pre-design meeting to get guidance for this project. No exceptions whatsoever or variances of the code were needed or asked for, and anything about this project is in line with the planning code. In addition, we're in full compliance with the residential design guidance. So after we purchased it, 2 weeks later, we get a call from the supervisor's office to reach out to us regarding ROCS. ROCS is a wonderful non-for-profit organization that rented part of the space there. And the concern was that they serve kids in the community and what is going to happen with them. I actually know ROCS through Kurt. He's a great guy who runs it, and I know him through the soccer community in San Francisco. And we immediately went there, we talked to them, we told them they can stay as long as they want, and without any thought that it will ever get here 5 years later, and me need to tell you that, we immediately waived all the rent. We just figured that we're coming to this neighborhood, we're getting into something that is such a wonderful organization, and we just waived the rent. We waived the rents as well to the other two organizations that used it very part-time. They send us some checks every once in a while. We never asked them for money, and that's basically how it was. In late 2015, early 2016, we were under the impression that we were about to be able to break ground around May or June 16. And so we basically let Kurt from ROCS know that we're asking for him if he can vacate by June. We received a call again from the supervisor office, and it was explained to us how crucial it is for them to stay there during the summer. That's the biggest time where all the kids on vacation, and that's where they do a lot of their work. Well, of course, we understood it. We delayed it again. At the time, that was our understanding, and we delayed it by 4 months. Not only that, we were going to go into a very crucial step of the construction into the winter. It could have even delayed us more. Little did we know then that that's not the case. But again, I'm just giving you our set of mind regarding what happened there. Yeah, overall, I mean, our potential loss of rent was probably exceeded $100,000, but again, this is not the kind of thing we really were worried about, and we were happy to do it for the community. We met with the appellant and the group 5 times. We made numerous design changes to accommodate the appellant group and other community members, which set us back again in time and cost, but we did what we needed to do. Surprisingly, the appellant filed a discretionary review with the Planning Commission. The discretionary review, again, caused delay of another 1.5 years. And I'm not going to get into the details, but it was not exactly with full disclosure the way the appellate behaved there, but we'll leave this aside. It took 2 discretionary review meetings, 1.5 years, and tremendous amount of additional cost for us. The planning commissioners considered all the appellant's complaints. They looked at a few other even design issues that they brought up and worked through all of them with basically a fine-tooth comb. They really went through it. We spent a lot of time. The planning commissioner voted unanimously to approve the project and to reject the appellant. The major point here is that I have to emphasize is that all the issues in front of you today have been raised, considered, and reviewed by the planning commissioners. There's nothing new here that hasn't been addressed in the 2 discretionary review meetings with the commissioners before. The city is losing the economical benefit of the construction budget. The city is losing close to $100,000 a year in real estate taxes. The community is losing the economical impact and social and other contribution that 5 families can bring to the neighborhood. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to secure the place from break-ins and removal of trash, which if I don't run out of time, I will show you. The immediate neighbors actually are the biggest victims here due to the continued break-ins and necessary police action. Just this morning we were called because the police was there. And some neighbors that used to support the appellant told us that they no longer do so, but they don't want to say it in public. Just to make a few other points that I picked up, just to be clear, this is a private land. This is not part of any public land. We are not prohibiting any access to anywhere. This is not true. The McKenna Park, we just Googled it, it's 312 acres. This is less than 1/3 of an acre, and it's, again, private land. Okay, I would like to go quickly through some slides to show you some pictures. This is, I want to point the garbage here. That's what we've been dealing again and again. and having to clean. This is supposedly the area where people come and hang out and look at the view. And by the way, after we build, there will still be view, and I'll show you it in a second. So, by the way, this was just from Google Maps. This is not even our picture. You can see over here all that. So, just quickly, I'm going through and showing you, this is exactly the end of Raymond, and this is how it looks, and this is what we've had to deal with for the last 5 years to clean a lot of it, and we've spent tens of thousands. This is all in the supposedly flat area that's not that flat in Raymond. So, again, tremendous amount of garbage all the time, and you can see that these pictures are taken at different totally times of the year. You can see the rain. I mean, every time we're there, that's what we see, and more garbage, and a little bit more garbage. And again, these are all pictures from different times, from different days, and so on. Of course, now let's get to a couple of other pictures. I just want, again, to make clear. It's a little, all right. So if you can see here, the blue is the caution tape defining the lot line. The red is the path that connects Leland to Raymond. Look at the space in between there. This is the path, and Recon Park considers the path between it. And this is the lot's corner. And a few more pictures here of the same thing. This is actually something to show you that at the narrowest point up on Raymond, and it's a flat area, there's 37 feet between Visitation Avenue and the parcel. There's a lot of room for people to walk by and still be okay, and then it immediately opens up. We do not block any access to the park. We do not do any of that. Some other things with respect to, some more garbage pictures, but I'm sure you've had enough of that. Let me show you something else. This is what Recon Park has been doing, and I think it's amazing and it's wonderful. But I haven't heard anybody complain to Recon Park about any rare species of anything. So Recon Park has basically, again, I'm totally in support of what they do because they're doing an amazing job making the garden much bigger for the community. That's exactly what they want. But for us, it was a year and a half of delay and $150,000, $200,000 in cost because supposedly there's some flowers in our area that has never been and never been found. But when Recon Park goes and disturbs about 2 or 3 times the area that we might, because keep in mind, there's a big structure in our area as it is now, then there's no complaint. Just a little bit, some people will call it hypocrisy, but I don't want to use words like that. So this is just a few more pictures to show you how beautiful it's going to be there for the neighborhood. And we've heard a lot of misleading information, especially in the discretionary review, the 2 meetings. It's all on tape, it's all on video. You've heard some of it today, and I hope that you will consider the good of the project and approve the project to go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak in opposition of the appeal? You will have up to 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Corey Smith on behalf of the San Francisco Housing Action Coalition, speaking against the appeal in support of the project. Certainly not the typical type of project that we are up here speaking in support of. There was a couple of kind of big factors that we looked at. Number one, we always talk about choices and different options for people to live in. Single-family homes is one of those options. And then that was the other word to this. It was families. We saw this as an opportunity to bring family housing to a place that currently has none. Those were kind of the big evaluation decisions that we had. We would just also ask that you examine this project and vote based on the California Environmental Quality Act as the Planning Department has laid out. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak in opposition of the appeal?
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Marie Stubbert. I am a citizen here in San Francisco. I just want to speak out in having more single-family homes. I'm now reaching that point in my life where I'm ready to settle down and purchase a home, I don't want a condo, and I don't want a one-bedroom studio or apartment in a 15-floor building. This is an attractive option. It's near a park. There's a chance for something really great to be happening here. Please don't take that away.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to speak in opposition of the appeal? Seeing none, public comment is closed. All right. The appellant will have up to 3 minutes for a rebuttal.
I had a speech prepared here, but what has been said is really outrageous. First off, in terms of the plants, we had Dr. Michael Vasey from State College come out, and he discovered the plants in the first place. And we'd have naturalists who work in park who've discovered them in the first place. And when ESA came out to do their study, they didn't find anything. We had to take them there and show them where the plants were. But that's not even the issue now. The issue is about whether this is infill space or not. When we were in the supervisor's office the other day, planning told us that the site is called 590. It's one single site. We were looking at it. Either way, you have to look at the perimeter of the site. If it's less than 75% with the boundaries, it's surrounded by housing or buildings, then that's considered, it's not considered to be infill. If you look at it as a totality, it's not infill. If you take the top 3 lots, which are all we're interested in now, they are, they're surrounded on 3 sides by open space. So no way is that infill space. We really want that to be looked at more carefully through a lens of not promoting housing, which is what the planning department is about. They don't follow their own general plan, and they've completely ignored the rows and the urban design elements of the general plan. In terms of views, I mean, I just cannot believe that they can go out there and say there are no views, and that the flat space there's no other flat space in that general area except down by the community garden. And that is, people who are elderly, I've seen them walking down the street, in the middle of the street, they do it on a daily basis from John King Center. They have no place to go that's flat. I know this is private property. It's unfortunate that it is, but there are ways of getting this land, to buy the land. When we started the Greenway, we were told we couldn't do it. It was impossible. We were told the same thing about Schlade's Lock by none other than Willie Brown, and look where we're at now. So anyway, I still dispute what they're saying. Thanks.
Thank you. And with that, this hearing has been held and is now closed. This matter is before the Board of Supervisors at this time. Supervisor Cohen, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. Seeing that there are no names, I figure that there's no discussion. I think this is pretty much an open and closed. Unfortunately, this is not a discretionary review. This is a CEQA appeal. And as I was trying to lay out before we began this discussion, is that there's a very limited scope as to which we can evaluate this project. And that is only through a CEQA lens. And so with that, I believe that the project being developed on private property violates no planning codes. And to be fair, I'm very uncomfortable with the size and the scale of this project. I share the community's concern that although a single family home may be will be sold, we have no assurances that it won't be Airbnb'd out. We have no assurances that people may not parcel off and just rent rooms, although that is in violation of the planning code. We already have very restricted public transportation access and very restricted parking. So we're talking about a lot of constraints that will be placed on the Viz Valley neighborhood. So these issues and the fears that are kind of manifesting are very real, and I want to dignify them. The challenge is that this project has been approved by the planning department and it's gone through the proper channels, and the arguments that the appellant has raised does not cut mustard. It just doesn't rise to the level for us to deny this project from moving forward. So with that, I ask that you join me in upholding the planning department's determination and allow this item to move forward. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no names on the roster, does that mean
Yes.
that you'd like to
make a motion to vote yes on item 48, and we will table items 49 and 50. Thank you, colleagues, for hearing us out.
Supervisor Cohen has made a motion to approve item 48 and table items 49 and 50. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Tang. Supervisor Fewer.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to thank Supervisor Cohen also for her leadership on this issue, and I want to concur that I also am not comfortable with the size of the homes in this development. I think this is a working class, sort of modest neighborhood, and this type of huge monster home will add to the unaffordability of that neighborhood, I am fearing, but your point is well taken, and so I will be supporting your motion, and I just wanted to thank Supervisor Cohen for her leadership on this.
Thank you. Seeing no other names on the roster, Madam Clerk, on the motion, please call the roll.
Supervisor Fewer.
Aye.
Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin. Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. There are 11 ayes.
Colleagues, the categorical exemption is finally affirmed, and this motion was approved unanimously. All right, Madam Clerk, let's go to roll call for introductions.
First up to introduce new business, Supervisor Fewer.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Today, colleagues, I introduced a resolution urging the Sheriff's Department and the Department of Public Health to conduct a baseline assessment of our food vendors in order to evaluate our alignment with good food purchasing standards related to local economies, nutrition, valued workforce, environmental sustainability, and animal welfare. The Good Food Purchasing Program is a model that was developed in 2012 to incentivize public institutions to procure food produced through values-driven purchasing standards. These standards have been adopted by institutions in Los Angeles, Chicago, Oakland, and San Francisco, with many more in the exploration process. The Good Food Purchasing Program works with institutions to establish supply chain transparency from farm to fork, evaluates how current purchasing practices align with a set of standards, assists with goal setting, measures progress, and celebrates institutional successes in shifting toward a value-based purchasing model. In 2016, as a member of the San Francisco Unified Board of Education, I authored a resolution that was passed unanimously adopting good food purchasing as a district policy, and was proud to do so with the support of Teamsters Joint Council 7 and the Center for Good Food Purchasing. About a year ago, my office began discussions with these groups again to explore good food purchasing as a policy for city and county hospitals and jails. I want to thank the Center for Good Food Purchasing, Teamsters Joint Council 7, SPUR, and the Mayor's Task Force on Human Trafficking for their collaboration and excitement on this issue. And thanks to the Sheriff's Department and the Department of Public Health for their willingness to work closely with our office to explore this further. Both departments have a strong commitment to healthy and sustainable food and have already taken steps toward good food purchasing and using our procurement dollars to influence city and county vendors on these value-driven issues. Today's resolution would be the first step toward exploration of this policy for our jails and hospitals, and having these two departments complete a baseline baseline assessment to understand where our vendors currently align with these good food purchasing standards. Thank you to Supervisors Hillary Ronen and Katie Tang for their co-sponsorship, and I welcome the support of my colleagues on this resolution. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Kim. Okay. We'll come back to Supervisor Kim. Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, as I mentioned earlier, when we dealt with the motorized scooter permitting matter, today I'm introducing a resolution urging this Board of Supervisors to oppose Assembly Bill 2989 introduced by Assembly Member Flora from the San Joaquin Valley that would deregulate scooters to triple their current wattage from 250 watts to 750 watts, to eliminate the helmet requirement, and to increase their speed from 15 to 20 miles an hour. The bill would also default scooter ridership to permit their use on sidewalks, which from my own observation is an attempt to match the dangerous situation on our streets today, saddling municipalities with the burden of moving legislation to prohibit their use on sidewalks, which legislation, out of an abundance of caution, I've asked the city attorney to draft. In the broader context, this pattern of disruption, whereby companies move fast, break things, and then hire teams of lawyers and lobbyists to mend their bad acts and to lobby for retroactive forgiveness and deregulation, has to stop. It requires no stretch of the mind to agree that these companies should be profiting off of the benefit that they provide to the public, and that they should not be profiting off of the harm they cause to the public realm. It's no surprise that they found a Republican Assembly member to sponsor the bill, because for as long as I can remember, deregulation has been a fundamental tenet for the Republican Party. And with that, colleagues, I want to thank you for your support of item 52 earlier today. Also, I will be introducing a purely commendatory imperative item commending the Kearney Street Workshop on its 45th anniversary and proclaiming April 19th as Kearney Street Workshop Day in the City and County of San Francisco, and want to thank Supervisor Kim for her co-sponsorship. A copy of that purely commendatory resolution is on all of your desks. Sad news, a week ago we were standing in these chambers and I did a special order commendation for Ernie Bile on his last day of 89. The next day he had his book launch on the day of his 90th birthday celebration at Original Joe's. 146 people came. I wanted to attend, but was at the Coastal Commission meeting, and on Thursday, Mr. Bile passed away. Our profound regrets to his widow, Joan, and daughter, Laurel, who were sitting in these chambers last week. Ernie was the quintessential North Beach character, and he will be missed. Godspeed and rest in peace, Ernie Bile. Stephen Fong passed away at the ripe age of 89. He immigrated to the United States in 1970 and served in many, many important roles in Chinatown and in the Chinese community as president of the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association, the Chinese Hospital Board, the Suhing Benevolent Association. He was a teacher and true community connector who brought many stakeholders of the community together and was remarkably generous to the hospital. He understood that the alleyways of Chinatown were their backbone, and he was a really progressive thinking community leader who, along with his dear friend Rose Pak, led the Chinese Chamber of Commerce and the Chinese Resource Center, today known as the Chinese Community Development Center, to advocate for street repairs and repaving and improved lighting in those alleys and their beautification in a time when Asian Americans were fighting for rights and justice and equity. Stephen's involvement later helped move forward rezoning and transportation projects that helped preserve and enhance the community's unique immigrant-serving characteristics. He was the sweetest guy. Our condolences to his three sons, Robert, Richard, and Scott, and his daughter, Stephanie. And I know that President Breed will be adjourning the board in our Sheriff Hennessy's husband, Jim's memory, and I'd like to add some comments to that after President Breed does that, as well as District 3 constituent and former president of the board, Doris Ward, who passed yesterday. The rest I will submit.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Ronen. Okay, thank you. Supervisor Safai.
Yes, I have an in memoriam today for Miriam Zelaya Dunaway. She passed away peacefully at her home on Tuesday, April 10th. She was born in Managua, Nicaragua, and she's survived by her loving husband, David Dunaway, to whom she was married for 70 years. Miriam will be lovingly remembered by her children, David and Lucia, and their spouses, Dina and Dominic Masoni. Her son, Kenneth, passed away in 2015, but she leaves behind adoring grandchildren, Christina Masoni Hughes, Angela Masoni Blaine, and Jason Dunaway, and her great-grandchildren, Sienna and Nicholas Hughes. A rosary service will be held in her honor this evening at the Church of the Epiphany. Family and friends are welcome, and so I just wanted to end the meeting this evening in her honor, Miriam Zayela Dunaway. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Sheehy. Okay, thank you. Supervisor Stephanie. Thank you. Supervisor Tang.
Thank you. It just, as I mentioned earlier, I'm introducing the resolution recognizing every April as Donate Life Month in San Francisco, as well as adjourn our meeting in honor of Sharon Belmer, who was a donor, an organ donor, and also a planning code change as well, so that we can try to create more affordable housing on near 19th and Ventara in our district. And with that, I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Yee.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, today I am introducing a resolution on behalf of my District 7 Youth Commissioner, Commissioner Kristen Tam, a junior attending Lowell High School. I believe she's in the chamber with other youth commissioners. Please stand up just to see who you... Okay. The purpose of this resolution is to draw attention to the need for greater environmental education for our city's youth. Given our federal administration's view on denying the existence of climate change and the steps Trump has taken to weaken environmental institutions, such as cutting funding for the EPA, it is our responsibility as civic leaders to proactively strengthen our commitment to equip our youth with the critical knowledge and skills to be responsible stewards of our environment. As Earth Day approaches this Sunday, it is important to renew our commitment to environmental protections, such as the ordinance we passed in 2008 supporting mandatory recycling and composting to get San Francisco to zero waste by 2020. To move closer towards this goal, the San Francisco Youth Commission, and specifically Commissioner Tam, have been advocating for more education for our next generation San Francisco leaders, the youth, in order to ensure that everyone learns how to properly sort waste and how to play a critical role in achieving our city's zero waste goals. As new rules have been implemented to expand the types of recyclable materials, it is important to make sure the public is aware of the new and existing rules and how great of an impact it makes. For instance, composting your banana peel instead of throwing it in a landfill can prevent methane from being released into the environment, which helps slow down climate change. The Department of Environment's school education team does outstanding outreach via presentations and workshops to elementary schools, and we congratulate them for educating these young students. However, as students advance in their education, the amount of environmental education greatly decreases due to limited time in the curriculum. Therefore, as many youth transition from being younger kids to young adults, many forget simple things such as how to properly sort their waste. To solve this problem, we can leverage the Department of Youth, Children, and their families, existing partnership with their grantees. DCYF serves over 50% of the youth from ages 11 to 17. Therefore, it is vital to connect DCYF with the Department of Environment's school education team to provide presentations and workshops to DCYF grantee recipients. By doing so, education around the importance of protecting the environment and sorting waste will reach a broader range of youth throughout the city. By connecting DCYF with the Department of Environment to educate older San Francisco youth, it ensures that the future of San Franciscans understand and are motivated to correctly sort waste in order to uphold our cities and commitment to improving and caring for the environment. So I hope you will be joining us when you get a chance to support this resolution submitted by Youth Commissioner Christine Tam. Secondly, I wanted to give more thought to this, but I just have this urge to go ahead and say it. I'd like to ask for a hearing. Many of you know that there's been some pedestrian fatalities in San Francisco over the last few years, and probably none of us have escaped that. There's been a senior in your district that was run over by a vehicle and killed. Today, that happened again in my district. And it seems, I had a press conference on Friday to focus on pedestrian safety education for our young children in elementary school with this new project that we just kicked off, in which we named after the late Mayor Lee, called Ed's Neighborhood. And I think I've been focused on young children, and I think it's time for all of us to pay attention and ask our departments to do the analysis of what's going on. I mean, why are so many seniors being killed in our streets? And in this case, and in many cases, these seniors are actually walking in a crosswalk and getting hit. So I'm asking the police department, SFMTA, Department of Public Works, TA, to go study this issue, do the analysis of what we can do to further our ability to prevent these preventable fatalities on our streets. So the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor. Madam President.
Thank you. Colleagues, today I'm introducing a hearing request on updating the Board of Supervisors on the work group to re-envision the jail replacement project. Many of you recall that when the board applied for state funding nearly 3 years ago for this project, we created the work group to re-envision the jail replacement. The goal of this group was to study alternatives to incarceration, how we can reduce jail bed days, and increase investments in mental health, homelessness, diversion, and education programs. With 850 Bryant's crumbling infrastructure, our escalating homelessness and mental health crises, and our goal of getting out of the Hall of Justice by 2019, the work of this group has been critical. The issue is really personal for me. I've seen too many of my friends and family members, sadly, end up behind bars. And throughout this re-envisioning process and in the last hearings we had on the topic at the Board of Supervisors, we learned that the jail population using most of the jail bed days is disproportionately young black men, and that we have hundreds of individuals struggling with mental illness who are in need of treatment. Roughly 18,000 total bed stays in 2015 were occupied by nearly 400 individuals who were waiting for available beds in residential treatment programs or locked psychiatric facilities. We can do better. As a result of this work group and the process they have undergone, we have actually made incredible progress. We're making greater investments in diversion programs. We're making targeted investments in social services and case management for those who suffer under systematic repeat incarceration, and improving the pre-booking process. Most of all, we're making serious investment in mental health and substance abuse treatment. But this work was just the beginning. We need to do whatever is necessary to get folks out of the Hall of Justice as soon as possible. and we need to be diligent and transparent about what it will take to get this done. This hearing will provide us an opportunity to review how these programs are working and make adjustments if needed. I want to thank all of those who participated in the work group to re-envision the jail replacement, the co-chairs, Sheriff Vicki Hennessy, Director Barbara Garcia, and Roma Guy, and I look forward to the continuing discussion around this particular issue and hopefully solutions to one of our most challenging problems. The other item I have is a in memoriam for James Hennessy, the husband of Sheriff Vicki Hennessy. James passed away over the weekend and leaves behind his wife of 41 years, 2 children, and 1 grandchild on the way. James, a native San Franciscan, graduated from Lowell High School and proudly served as a member of the San Francisco Police Department for 34 years, 21 of those years on the horses. He actually received a gold medal for saving the life of a tourist at Ocean Beach. He joined the police department after returning from service in the Navy during the Vietnam War. While in the police department, James also spent 22 years volunteering at the San Francisco Police Credit Union, serving on numerous committees and on the board of directors. He loved to travel, and according to his wife, Sheriff Hennessy, he was a great storyteller. When we lose a member of our city family, it touches each and every one of us, and I know that I speak for each and every one of us when we say to Sheriff Vicki Hennessy, our thoughts and prayers are with you. And colleagues, I know that others have comments that they'd like to make, and without further ado, I want to acknowledge Supervisor Peskin to make remarks regarding this in memoriam.
Thank you, President Breed. I want to thank Eileen Hurst for filling me in a little bit about Jim, who was not only a proud Vietnam vet, but he organized trips back to Vietnam for other veterans as a touchstone for healing and closure for all sides around a very traumatic period in our history. And then on a lighter note, I want to say that I believe he is the only person in the history of mayoral proclamations to get a proclamation for an animal, which was his horse Gus. And I think the mayor who issued that proclamation was Diane Feinstein. Our condolences to Sheriff Hennessy.
Thank you. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if the sheriff is somewhere in this building watching, but I definitely want to just uplift her. I have found the sheriff to be so thoughtful and so heartwarming in her approach to policy, to community justice, reform, and of course, an unparalleled dedication to her family. I've known her husband has been ill for many years, and I just want to commend the entire Hennessy family for coming together and cherishing Mr. Hennessy for being a wonderful father and also for being a loving husband for the last 41 years. Sheriff, I just want you to know that I'm definitely thinking about you. I know this is an incredibly difficult time, but you heard from the president, our hearts are with you. We are holding you up in our thoughts and our prayers and sending you much energy. I am delighted to know that your husband is no longer suffering, no longer sick, and no longer in pain. And I want to implore you to hold on to your cherished memories and remember the love and the bond that the two of you have shared. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Supervisor Feuer.
Yes, on behalf of the 80,000 residents of District 1, I just wanted to extend our deepest condolences to the sheriff and at the loss of her husband. You know, I've been married myself going on 37 years, and I know what it's like to be in a partnership where you grow into adulthood and then later into older adulthood, and what a deep connection that is. And so I send my deepest sympathies on behalf of my entire district, 80,000 residents, to the sheriff today.
Thank you, Supervisor Feuer. And colleagues, can we adjourn the board meeting in honor of James Hennessy on behalf of the entire board without objection? Without objection, we will do so. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, I have one other in memoriam that Supervisor Cohen and I share. Former supervisor and president of the board, Doris Ward. Doris Margaret Ward was born on January 27, 1932 in Chicago. She passed away this weekend at age 86. While in high school in Gary, Indiana, Doris became active in the civil rights movement. During college at Indiana University, she participated in several sit-ins at bars and other public areas. After moving to San Francisco in 1972, she became a community college trustee and was elected to the Board of Supervisors in 1979. It would be another 11 years before she became the first African American to serve as the president of the Board of Supervisors. But Doris didn't begin her career as a politician. She started as a teacher, and her passion for education and for helping young people never wavered. She had a profound sense of compassion for all people, compassion which carried through all of her work as a community college trustee, a member of the Board of Supervisors, assessor, recorder for the City and County of San Francisco, and a true community leader. Doris always had the courage to stand up and speak out for those who did not always have a voice. She spoke up for those who felt isolated and unheard in our city. She spoke up for those who needed access to affordable housing and tenant protections. And she spoke up for those who our city was leaving behind. As someone who grew up in public housing in this city and who felt isolated, Doris showed me and many in my community that things could be different. She showed me elected leaders in this city could actually care about communities. When I had the fortune of meeting Doris in high school, she encouraged me, she listened to me, she told me to do well in school, she told me I was smart. She didn't know who I was or that I might end up here one day. I was just another public school kid, but she cared, she listened, she encouraged me anyway. This is how Doris was to everyone that she would meet. Her unwaveringly committed to doing the right thing for the city and all of its residents. There are so many people to whom I owe my success, and one of them is truly Doris Ward. It is because of women like her that we have opportunities. Supervisor Cohen and myself have opportunities to actually serve on the Board of Supervisors. Her approach and emphasis on compassion is something that I try to carry with me throughout my work. I was incredibly fortunate to have benefited from her advice and her counsel over the years. And just a few months ago, Supervisor Cohen and I, along with many others from the community, we honored her here in the chamber, at the Board of Supervisors chamber. It included so many friends, family members, former members of the Board of Supervisors, leaders in the city. They celebrated her life, her career, her legacy. Today, as our country and sometimes even our city feels even more divided than ever, Doris is definitely someone that we can all learn from. We all come to these chambers every Tuesday committed to addressing the issues facing San Francisco. But today, I want us all to think about how we can be more like Doris, how we can be more compassionate to one another, especially when we disagree, how we can work together better on behalf of the citizens of this city, and how we can strive to speak up and listen to those who may feel, as I once did, that they didn't have a voice here at City Hall. To Doris, whose spirit I know will always be in this chamber and with so many of us in this city, I stand on your shoulders. I will carry your history, your struggle, and your triumph with me every single day. You will be truly missed, and thank you all so much for taking this moment to acknowledge someone who was a true hero here in the city and county of San Francisco. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Supervisor Cohen for a few remarks.
Thank you. I think the best part about having an opportunity to talk about Doris Ward today in this space and in this time is that we were able to do it when she was alive several months ago. in this chamber, community members got together and she sat right here in the well and she talked about what she contributed. She talked about what life was like. And it was just such a privilege to be there standing with President Bree, standing on the shoulder, but also reminiscing about how far we have come, but also paying homage and respect to the future and how much further we must continue to go. When I was first elected, I remember she encouraged me to reach out and be more involved in regional bodies. And then London got elected 2 years after I did, and I think she took us both out to lunch. And I got to tell you, not only was Doris an indefatigable woman, she was so strong, but she was funny. And this is a woman that wasn't afraid to have a cocktail in the middle of the day. Her cocktail choice was a Manhattan. She had so many stories and so many lessons to share. She inspired me. I remember being in middle school, at Aptus Middle School, when she was running for assessor. I didn't know what assessor was, and quite frankly, up until recently, just learned about assessor. Thank you, Carmen Chu. But she was a woman that was on the news, right? There weren't many black women that were on the news, even in this great progressive city of San Francisco, that was elected. She convinced me when I was younger that I could do it and that I could win and that I could run and that I could win. And that in this city, we would be able to rise above politics and ethnic teams, for lack of a better way to describe it. And really soar into office based on policy. This was a thoughtful woman. This was a pioneering woman. And you know what was the best part about it is that she was so humbled. She wasn't even trying to make history, and she wasn't trying to make a name for herself. She was just trying to make San Francisco better for everyone. So it is with great pleasure that we get to stand here on her shoulders, reminiscing and paying homage to an incredible legacy, a legacy, frankly, if you realize it or not, that we are all standing on. We are all standing on the shoulders of Doris Ward and many people that have come before us, Willie B. Kennedy included. So with that, I just want to say thank you, Doris, and I want to just lift a glass up to you and for your memory. You have left an incredible gift to the city and county of San Francisco, and I'm privileged to be here to continue and work in that vein. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. And colleagues, without objection, it'd be an honor to adjourn the meeting today on behalf of the entire board in honor of former supervisor, former assessor, Doris Ward. Without objection. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Cohen?
So amazing.
Roll call.
Yes. Sorry, I was just telling Norman Yee that I'm going to say wonderful things about him when his time is up. Just going to be just as impassioned. Don't worry, Jane, I got good things for you too. Peskin, you are too. All of you. But you got to do good work. You got to give me something to talk about. Okay, first, ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited because I want to talk to you about a few things. I want to talk to you about the budget and the budget cycle, all right? We are in the season. We are talking about the budget. We're trying to figure out our budget priorities. And last week in the Budget and Finance Committee, we had its first priority hearing, and the focus was on clean streets across San Francisco. And the reason why we're doing things differently is we are trying to create a budget process that is focused on policy. We are trying to extrapolate the politics and the politicking of nonprofit groups, of organizations, and really get down to the crux of why we serve. So the first presentation that we heard was from the City Service Auditor, from the Department of Public Works, from the Department of Public Health, Community Benefit Districts, and the Budget Legislative Analysts, as well as comments, of course, from concerned community members. Now, there are a few things that stuck out from this hearing. First, that DPW's Street Environment Services team has seen a 50% budget increase over the last few years, but continues to see a huge influx in service call requests. Second, the metrics that we track as a city would suggest that our streets and sidewalks are in fact getting cleaner. But If you're walking around the streets, you probably would argue something very different. So we need to reconcile this difference. Public perception is indicating that we are not meeting our mark. Third, entry-level staffing and employees retention is a challenge for the Department of Public Works. Fourth, localized work is essential for prevention and quick response, particularly when it comes to trash buildup. And finally, in high traffic areas, we rely heavily on our community benefit district, community partners to supplement our efforts, quite frankly, to the tune of $4 million in additional tax assessment that is allocated to street cleaning alone. So we have heard you. Street cleaning is a priority. So it's important that this conversation inform not just our own responses to constituents, but also that it drives policy and the budget investment, both for us at the Board of Supervisors and for the mayor's budget process. You see, on June 1st, the mayor is going to present his draft budget to this body, and then we will then digest this budget and have many deliberations and many long meetings around this budget and produce a policy that we will call the budget. And the way this works is it's important to have input from every aspect of the community. The importance of this conversation is to inform not just our responses to constituents, but most importantly to drive the policy and the budget investment. So together with my colleagues on the Budget Finance Committee, I'm introducing a resolution urging the mayor to fund our street cleaning priorities. Now, this resolution is something that I'm going to be bringing to each and every one of you every week. This is based off of what we hear in the Budget and Finance Committee. We are going to be putting what we hear into a resolution that we are then going to pass at the board, and we are going to submit to the mayor in hopes that he will hear us and that these priorities will be reflected in his budget that he's going to be presenting in June. Now, pit stop expansion, nonprofit work grants, and the purchase of additional steam cleaning equipment. That is what our where the priorities are. This is what we heard in the committee. I would also like to see new public trash cans redesigned, accelerated, a plan to improve staff retention, and a commitment to citywide geographic equity in the street cleaning strategy. This resolution has been introduced without reference to committee. I hope to have your unanimous support. I want to acknowledge that we have every member, actually, Supervisor Sheehy, I don't know, have you read it? Okay, it's being processed. Every member has signed on to the resolution, and I believe that Supervisor Sheehy is still mulling it over and will eventually be inspired to get on board with the rest of his colleagues. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now that's just budget, okay? Now I got some heavy stuff to talk about. Now I find it ironic that I've got an overwhelming number of calls from the press about the shipyard hearing that I'm going to be introducing today, but yet nobody is here. And I'm not quite sure how to reconcile that. So perhaps they're watching from afar, but I want to say that today I'm introducing a hearing to discuss the cleanup timeline of the Hunters Point shipyard and to address the disputes between the federal regulators and the U.S. Navy on first, the percentage of parcel G that will be retested, and second, the methodology of retesting soil. Now, I don't know how much you know about the Hunters Point shipyard cleanup. You've read about it. Certainly, NBC 11 has done a tremendous job on their investigative reporting. People have been doing a lot of talking about it. Quite frankly, it's been in the process of being cleaned up for 30 years. And this decade-long process is there's no end in sight. At some point, we want to acknowledge the fact that corners were cut under Tetra Tech, which is a consultant that was used to partner with the testing of the soil. Under Tetra Tech's supervision, corners were cut, landing us in the situation that we have before us today. So given the concerns about falsified tests, there has been an understandable erosion of public trust, not only that the land being retested will ever be safe and habitable, but also that the land where individuals and families are currently living right now, there's question around whether or not that land is safe. So I wanted to share with you some details about what this week has been like. We have had expectant families contacting my office with real fears about giving birth while living at the shipyard and raising their children on what is widely perceived to be toxic land. And not to mention the little four-legged furry friends that we have that are walking on our open spaces in the shipyard. We want to make sure that it is safe. I've got families reaching out with questions about air quality. I have people asking how to get out of their leases because they're concerned about the life and safety of their families. I'm hearing very real fears from the community and very little appropriate response from the Navy. This is unacceptable. Enough is enough. From my perspective, the Navy has done an exceptionally poor job of communicating with the public. Matter of fact, it's been very resistant. It's because of public actions that sunshined and has shed light and continues to shed light on a very dark issue. We're talking about a Superfund site. That means that the land at some point was contaminated by hazardous waste and identified by the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, for cleanup because the risk posed to human health, because of the risk posed to human health and to the environment. And no other community in San Francisco would a disgraceful sequence of events such as this be allowed to persist. Even in District 6 in the Tenderloin, Treasure Island project is further along in their cleanup. And that's a crime. It's no coincidence that in the city with an African American population of less than 5% and dropping, in a part of town that holds 22% of that population, in a neighborhood that was once the only place where African Americans could buy and own a home, because of redlining and restrictive covenants, that we are even talking about this matter today. This is environmental injustice of a huge proportion. Now, because of the housing affordability crisis, we have people trying to rush through testing. And frankly, this is unacceptable. And what's most upsetting, yet unsurprising, is that no one has been held accountable. No one. No one has paid a fine. No one has been faced criminal charges for fraud. No one has even appeared before this body to defend the bogus actions of falsifying tests on toxic land, and it's absolutely outrageous. So we all should be upset. We all should be enraged and disturbed and disgusted by the casual approach our federal government has taken in the work of cleaning up land that they poisoned in the first place when they dumped industrial and nuclear pollution here. The Navy needs to do the right thing and clean up this mess. I'm sick and tired of this. We demand a timeline of when this work will be completed, and we demand that the Navy stop cutting corners, stop trying to find shortcuts, and retest 100% of the land on Parcel G in the shipyard. And I hope that you will join me in holding the Navy accountable as we continue to move forward. I think that's all I have, colleagues. That's enough. I'm tired. I got to conserve my energy for that hearing, because it's going to be a hearing. It's going to go down. Thank you, Madam President. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor. Madam President, that concludes the introduction of new business.
Thank you. And Supervisor Cohen, I stand with you on that hearing as well. Thank you so much for your work on your leadership.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Madam Clerk. So Supervisor Kim had asked to be re-referred for a roll call for introductions.
Thank you. I just merely want to add my name as a co-sponsor to Supervisor Cohen's hearing on the shipyards.
Thank you. Supervisor Fuhrer?
I also want to add my name to the hearing of Supervisor Cohen, and I want to thank you, Supervisor Cohen, for your leadership. This has been an issue for a very, very long time, affecting the health of so many people that live there. Thank you for taking the leadership role on this.
Thank you.
Thank
Any other
you.
supervisors? Ronan. Tang, are you in? All right. Anyone else? Peskin. Sheehy, Safai, and Stephanie. All right, that's a full house. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Madam Clerk, are there any other members who have not completed roll call for introductions?
To my knowledge, that concludes it, Madam President.
Okay, please read public comment.
At this time, the public may address the entire Board of Supervisors for up to 2 minutes on items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Board, to include the March 13th, 2018 Board meeting minutes and items 55 through 61 on the adoption without reference to committee calendar. Public comment will not be allowed when an item has been previously subject to public comment at a board committee. Pursuant to the board's rules, please direct your comments to the board as a whole, not to individual members, not to the audience. Speakers using interpretation assistance will be allowed twice the amount of time to testify, and if you would like to display a document on the overhead projector, please clearly state such to SFG TV, and then remove the document when you'd like the screen to return to live coverage of the meeting.
First speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Kristen Tam, and I'm District 7 Youth Commissioner, the commissioner who helped write the resolution that Supervisor Yee, Supervisor Tang, and Supervisor Sheehy have graciously agreed to introduce and co-sponsor. I would like to thank all three of them and their legislative aides for doing so. This resolution is so important because of the need to educate our young people about our commitment to the environment, and especially touches my heart because I have been blessed with a great passion for protecting the environment. I love going outside and being able to be outside, enjoy breathing in fresh air that isn't polluted, and being able to have clean water and clean resources. And that is something I don't want to have to take for granted when I grow up later. And so, in addition to that, it is so important to be able to educate our youth about the importance of protecting the environment, and in one way doing so by sorting our waste. So thank you with that. Thank you so much for your support. I hope to continue the collaboration between the Board of Supervisors and the San Francisco Youth Commission for many further issues. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Put this book up.
SFG TV, please. I'm starting your time, sir.
God is very precise, and he wants his people to be precise. I made a mistake last week in saying 1945 was the Sabbath year. It was actually 46 was the Sabbath year and a smidgen of 47. I also made a mistake in the previous speech I gave here in saying the Bar Kokhba rebellion was the 32 Jubilees after Christ. It was actually the 32nd Jubilee. Now, I believe 8,062 days ago, something big time happened. And that something big time that happened was the sounding of the first trumpet at the end of the times of the Gentiles, which is 360 sabbatical cycles. 6,062 days ago, the sixth trumpet began to sound. That was 9/11. I predicted this a month before it happened based on when Jesus was baptized. It's quite easy to do mathematically. And I believe that now, today, the seventh trumpet has been sounding for 3,062 days. And, Jesus said, ask and it'll be given you, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door will be opened unto you. And he said, you're not supposed to tell anybody when you fast or pray, hide it as much as you can. But I'm just going to tell you, I fasted a whole day. I missed breakfast at lunch. I was starving, and I finally made it to dinner. And I prayed one thing only, over and over. Well, not one thing only, but mostly one thing, that the Lord would show me when he's coming back. And I didn't hear an audible voice. But it's very strange if you think about it. Next year is April 19th. That's when Passover falls. It'll be 8,430 days from the sounding of the first trumpet. And to me, that's a very interesting number. 8,000 is a very interesting number. 430, if you go to Exodus, it was 430 years from when Abraham was told by God something very important to the Exodus.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. Political leaders should engage on the world rescues with pathway of mercy to actualize one's true destiny of kindness and righteousness. The awareness of social morality works on the inner cultivation of holiness and external world mission of holy mercy. The right path, civil justice, true principles, the cultivation of virtues, world missions of love and kindness are the great teachings of outright studies of those political leaders should establish as great foundation on a society for the well-being of our people. World tragedies are caused by the corruption of human hearts, of endless greedy desires of humankind lead to bad competition, of local unrest and international warfare, that the world comes to be in a state of disorder. World rescues work on the awareness of social morality for leading other people in taking the right path to do the right things with peace and harmony. World leaders have to educate our people with outright studies so as to end all bias, disputes, and world turmoils in achieving the ultimate spiritual liberation of world salvation. Where holiness and mercy shall unite the world to gain forever peace and harmony for the true perfection and true happiness of humankind. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, let me catch my breath here. I've just been through a real big trauma, so I need to share my soul with you a minute here. I was attacked in Oakland on my birthday, and it's the second time I've been attacked and nothing happened. And I was just singing and entertaining people, and I got attacked and robbed. And it seems like this whole entire year for me and for all of us has been really hard, hasn't it? Really hard to deal with all the weirdness and chaos in our community. So in a time like that, I just lift up my hands and I say, "Oh, Rao. Oh, Rao. Keep your hands on the plow. Oh, Rao." And Rao is God on Krypton. Oh, Rao, oh, Rao, keep your hands on the plow. Oh, Rao. Heard the voice of Rao say, "I am the way. Keep your hands on the plow." Oh, Rao. When my way gets dark as night, I know that Rao will be my light. Keep your hands on the plow. Oh, Rao. Thank you, San Francisco.
Thank you, Supergirl. Next speaker, please.
She gets way more applause than I do, and I know I be on tune, but I'm not going to sing to Queen Bee. Can I get this here, right? Because I'm not going to say nothing, but this is a special that I'm going to show to all the supervisors and everybody.
SFGTV, please.
Get this. This is a special, and I'm not going to say one word. Each one of these pictures is worth 1,000 words. Y'all were here. What happened when the city and county did something that I call political. It had nothing to do with no racism, had nothing to do with no gender. It had to do about politics. It has something to do with the progressives and the moderates. And my message is today, you progressives and you moderates going to have to get together and solve it. I'm talking about the black population going down. But ladies and gentlemen, these are all copyrighted pictures. I don't know if I can save it. This picture right here, can I show? Can you see it? There's the master there of politics here in the 20s. There's Peskin. It wasn't about it wasn't about racism. It wasn't about gender. And there's his allies by him. I call them progressives.
Mr. Washington, into the microphone, please.
Oh, in the microphone. I'm not supposed to be talking. Boom. And here they are again. They're lined up, getting ready to do their thing here in the city and county. Okay. Boom. I got more pictures, though. And then on this side here, you got the moderates all lined up there looking like, okay, we finna do our thing, but they don't even know what's finna take place. Because I didn't know. Nobody knew what got to take place. It wasn't racial. It wasn't gender. Now, here they are. And the man there, our mayor, sitting over there like he didn't know what was going down. He was keeping that to his chest, as Supervisor Cohen said. He kept it to his chest. But that's all politics, not racial, and it's not even what you call gender. Hold on. But here I go. Boom. Look at the progressive sitting over there, and that man there, Mark, he's smart. He done made a deal. He made a deal. And then most of my black folks come down, it was racist. It wasn't about race, it was politics. London didn't say nothing about that she was going to follow whatever her colleagues are. And there it go again. And the man there seen there, oh, what went down? That's what went down. The moderates and the progressives going to... Now,
thank you, Mr. Washington. Thank you, sir, for your comments. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
I'd like to thank the Board of Supervisors for my chance to get up and to introduce myself and make a couple comments. My name is Paul Taylor. I'm running for the Republican position of U.S. Senator.
No campaigning in the chamber.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Yeah. So my comment is this, that in growing up and being adopted, in my experience of governance, my parents taught me right from wrong, and then when I became a husband and a father, I did the same thing with my family. And then as a business owner and creator and creating thousands of jobs in California and across the United States, I did the same. And the thing that remains the same throughout that, and as I move forward, is this one term, and it's called being consistent. And being consistent is what my father taught me about obeying him. My son learned consistency with me teaching him how to grow up as a young man. My employees learned that from me as well. And now, as I look to the future, I'm thinking about our laws here in this country, and we're inconsistent in our laws. And so the reason why I'm here is to talk to you about reversing your position on the sanctuary cities here in the city, because it's not consistent with our laws. And if you're going to be consistent with our laws, you're going to be consistent across the board. You can't expect to enforce some laws and not enforce others. So my point is to please do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, I'm Dane Johnston. I'm Homeless Hero 2006, also a top San Francisco icon. Okay, this homeless problem fight has gotten really bad to where now people won't give me any change, won't give me any respect. It's gotten so bad the other day, the firemen were in Cliffs and they were sarcastically joking about, oh, he's a hero or he's a hero. Firemen publicly joking about somebody being a hero, it's gotten pretty bad. Now, I told them the next day, I said, the reason you need to respect me is not because I pulled somebody out of a car. This is the reason. 25 years ago, when visitors from around the world looked upon SF from the top of Twin Peaks, they saw a landfill. Trash covered the hillside, with trash over a foot deep, uncleaned for decades. The whole city was in the same shape, and tourism was at all-time slump. 25 years ago, I cleaned 70-plus hours a week for free for 15 years. That adds up to be $250,000 at $10 an hour, by the way. Restoring the whole area between Dolores Park and Twin Peaks, all those stairway parks and everything. I played a huge part in restoring tourism to its numbers today and bringing in a huge amount, millions of dollars of revenue to this city. But I'm not allowed a piece of sidewalk to sleep on. Now, I'm not asking, it's not a gift anymore. Now, I'm threatening to sue the city for $50 million worth of class action lawsuits against the homeless if they do not do what I want, which first thing is to put this story in the news. Second thing is to pay me the $250,000 I earned. Third thing is to pay me the respect I earn. Okay, I want phone calls from you right away, or we're going to start on the $50 million of lawsuits, up to $250 million worth of class action lawsuits for rights violations. I want what is mine. I want my respect, what I've earned. I gave the city millions of dollars. Give me $1. I need $1 today. I need donations now, today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, supervisors and esteemed clerk of the board. My name is Kylie Hussman, and I'm the director of the San Francisco Youth Commission. I want to echo our fabulous D7 Youth Commissioner, Kristen Tam, of giving thanks to Supervisors Yi, Tang, and Sheehy, and any other supervisors who are willing to sponsor Kristen's resolution on environmental education. Also, thank you to Supervisors Yi and Supervisors Breed for introducing hearings on pedestrian safety and alternatives to incarceration. We have several youth commissioners who are currently working on these issues, and spoiler alert, Supervisor Cohen, the Youth Commission will be presenting on all of these issues at the upcoming Budget and Finance Committee hearing, hopefully in early May. And the Youth Commission and our entire office and all of our young people look forward to working with all of you to support the ideas and strategies our amazing youth leaders bring forward. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
My name is Heather Sterner. I'm on the board of the League of Women Voters of San Francisco. And I'm here to support the resolution proposed by Supervisor Fewer. We commend her on her resolution supporting California schools and local Community Funding Act. This initiative to amend Prop 13 is supported by every League of Women Voters in the state of California. We hope that the 6 of you who have not yet endorsed this will endorse it because, as you know, it needs unanimous support. When Prop 13 was passed in 1978, many people warned that it would hurt our schools, and that has proved to be all too true. By requiring big commercial properties to pay their fair share of property tax, it would be an enormous boon to San Francisco's schools as well as community projects. So we hope that you will give this your unanimous support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Namdev Sharma. I speak on the behalf of taxi medallion buyers. Taxi business in San Francisco is terrible. Taxi industry has been collapsed. There is no hope this business will improve. We have no hope from SFMTA, and it is too late for them to bring this business back to us. They look for their bigger paychecks. Taxi medallion owners are looking to make their living. It's very hard for us to make money in these days. No one takes taxis. It's like demand and supply. There is no demand for taxis. You should, whatever, say 700 medallions abundant, prohibit them, whatever called terminate, revoke, whatever you like to use the word, you can do that and stop these 700 medallions you sold to us. SFMTA employees are your subordinates. You can advise them to refund taxi medallion owners' money back as soon as possible. Every day we are dying by inches to make money to pay these medallion payments. We are waiting patiently to get our money back from SFMTA. Today, there's RSA convention. No one take taxi. It's amazing, thousands of people there. We were struggling to get like $10 ride within half an hour. We didn't get it. Everything is captured by ride-sharing companies. Bring it to your taxi agenda.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you, sir. Sir, thank you. Thank you kindly. Next speaker, please.
To everybody. Again, is the same issue for the taxi medallion that have been bought from the poor 700 peoples. There are black, Latinos, Asians, Caucasian, or whatever you can name it. They are there. And I have seen that you peoples are listening here, and everything is seems like very good. And specifically, President Breed, I would invite you to come to the airport, because the taxi drivers cannot afford $6 parking in this parking garage and come over here and seek your help. $3 after 3 p.m. And we want you to come, all of the Board of Supervisors, to come to the airport and listen and see the miserable life of the taxi drivers who bought their permit for $250,000. And again, there is a black, Latinos, and Hispanic, and Asian, and all kind of peoples. But basically, minorities are being crippled. And it would be late that if you do not act now, then you might have to represent the memorandum that somebody has passed away, served like 29 years or 40 years. And my humble request is to change this course and at least come once to the airport and talk to the people directly. Instead of listening from the SFMTA, you should confront or talk to the drivers face to face. At least you can see and hear the reality by yourself. And another thing before I leave, this item number 23, it is a good thing, but it is only a peanut to the mouth of the elephant. We want
Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your comments. And next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. David Elliott Lewis. I've served 2 terms on our city's mental health board. I currently serve on the boards of NAMI San Francisco, the Mental Health Association, Community Housing Partnership, and I also work as a trainer for the San Francisco Police Department's Crisis Intervention Team Training Program. I say this because I know something about our city's behavioral health system, and I know something about our state's behavioral health system. And I have a lot of concerns about your agenda item 55 coming up to support Scott Wiener's State Bill 1045. We already have laws on the books for conservatorships. We already have laws for people who can't care for themselves. To enact additional legislation which strips people of their rights is really troubling. We have a system of care that's broken. We do not have treatment on demand. We don't have housing on demand. We need housing and treatment and community supports. And to enact another law that can deprive people of civil rights, to address a political need of seeing homeless people on the street is really troubling, and I hope you will not pass this resolution. I know there is support on this board, but I really hope it'll give you pause. Again, we have the OPS conservatorship laws, we have mental health courts, we have a legal framework for people who can't care for themselves. What we need are more community supports, and we need housing for those who can't care for themselves. So I hope you'll continue to support expansion of behavioral health services and housing on demand, and not support laws that take away our rights and our liberties. No on SB 1045. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you for your testimony. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Abdul Ghafoor. I'm coming to for the same thing, like for a taxi business. Taxi business is so bad, and unfortunately, we are struggling a lot in this matter. And mostly taxi drivers are immigrant, and they just only move here with their family. Like me, I have 4 kids, young kids, going to the school. 2 go to the school. One, my daughter go to the university, and 1 go to the college. And please help us to bring our money back from the SFMTA. We need that money for our business, for our kids, because no more business. And if you guys not help us, I think very soon we coming to here with the family and with the wife, and we got a divorce, because wife need money, we do not have money. And kids need money, we do not have money. Thank you for your help, and thank you for your time. And please help us in this matter. This is very serious matter. Please do not take this is like a lightly. because the taxi business is unfair in this city, because the 700 medallion is sold by the immigrant people, and the people used to have a medallion, they have a free. And if we go to buy the list things, and mostly people, I'm not talking about any generation and anything like that, but the thing is, when they saw the medallion, SFMTA saw a list, mostly immigrant people, they sold the medallion to the immigrant peoples. And mostly still like a 1600 to minus 1700, the people have a free medallions. And please, this is very unfair business. Help us in this matter. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next speaker, please.
Honorable Supervisors, my name is Roxanne Makashjan, and I represent the Bay Area Armenian National Committee. On behalf of San Francisco's Armenian American community, we thank you very much for considering the resolution that Supervisor Peskin has introduced, commemorating the 103rd anniversary of the Armenian genocide perpetrated by the Turkish government. In that first genocide of the modern era in 1915, Armenians lost more than half of their population, 1.5 million Armenians living on their historic homeland. After the killings, it didn't end. The genocide continued with the complete dispossession of Armenian properties, their schools, hospitals, churches, businesses, farms, the entire civilization they had built over centuries, beginning before the Turks had arrived, then all simply erased or appropriated by the Turkish government. The disastrous effects are compounded every day in very real ways as a direct result of the massive government campaign of genocide denial, both within and beyond the Turkish boundaries. Denial is the major roadblock preventing any modicum of recovery, reparation, reconciliation between the two nations. It is responsible for the dangerously destabilizing and tense relationship between the two neighboring countries today, serving as an ongoing threat to the security of Armenia. Your remembrance will not only serve to honor the victims and educate the public, but it'll also be an important stand against historical revisionism, which so often leads to the repetition of these saddest chapters of history. We urge the board's unanimous approval of this resolution, as it has commendably done for many years running. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Hagen, and I'm an organizer with Evolve California. First of all, I want to just thank Supervisor Fuhrer for your leadership in introducing this resolution to reform Prop 13 and support the Schools and Local Communities First Act. I also want to thank Supervisors Peskin, Supervisor Sheehy, Yee, Ronan, and Kim for co-sponsoring this really important reform, because we need this now more than ever. My wife is a public school teacher here in San Francisco, and I get to see every day just how heartbreaking it is for her to see her students cheated out of the future that they deserve. I see her every weekend. We go down to Target, we buy in classroom supplies for her kids, and she is in no way unique, as many of you will know. All of our teachers have to do this every year. And this is in San Francisco. We have it better than most of the state. Can you even imagine what it is like for teachers, for parents, and most of all for students in other districts around the state who have far less resources than we do? And at this point in time, how can we continue to justify allowing large corporations like Chevron to get away with paying pennies on the dollar in property taxes, saving hundreds of millions of dollars every year, while our schools are in the bottom 10 in per pupil funding, while we have the most overcrowded classrooms in the nation, and while the rest of us are all paying our fair share? We need California to show a better way, and I hope you will adopt this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Rajita Rawal. I'm with Evolve California. I want to thank Supervisor Fuhrer for introducing the resolution to support the Schools and Communities First initiative. I got involved with this campaign 2 years ago because I felt it wasn't fair that the young students I was mentoring felt discouraged to learn and stupid, when in actuality it is because of the chronic underfunding of our state's public schools that they were not given enough resources or time to succeed. And after 40 years, it is about time that we reform Prop 13 and restore over $800 million every year to our cities, schools, and communities. No more tax breaks for large corporations. Our students deserve better than that. I urge the board to pass this resolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Joshua Wolger, and I'm a Richmond District resident, student, and an intern with Evolve California. I urge you to pass the Schools and Communities First initiative. My sister is a new special education teacher in California who hasn't even started her position yet and has already been told she needs to buy supplies for her classroom out of her own pocket, which is ridiculous considering the low salaries teachers already make. This initiative will give teachers and students the resources they deserve. It is about time we invest in the children of California. Thank you, Supervisor Feuer, for bringing this resolution forward, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Susan Van Kijken. I grew up in Michigan a long time ago, and as I was probably a teen, I knew somehow, we all knew, that California had the best schools in the nation. Now, what has happened, Prop 13 came along and things started to change. I came here in 1994, and I've known a lot of young teachers who have had to supply their own classrooms. I'm a supporter of Evolve because I want changes in our city. We need to support our children. How can we expect our country to grow more healthy and more wise if we don't support our children? So please support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
I'm here in support of Supervisor Feuer's resolution to reform Proposition 13. My name is Megan Abel. I am the Advocacy and Organizing Director of the Tech Equity Collaborative. We're a membership organization representing hundreds of tech workers in the Bay Area who think that the tech-driven economy can and should work for everyone. While tech didn't create the underlying issues that are causing the housing crisis, we recognize that the fast growth of our industry has contributed to the conditions that are pushing out longtime residents and vulnerable communities. We feel that we have a responsibility to use our voice to advocate for policy that will make it possible for everyone who wants to live here to access housing affordably. That's the reason why I'm here today and why our organization supports Prop 13 reform. We're extremely excited to be one of the hundreds of grassroots faith and labor groups in the Schools and Communities First coalition to reform Proposition 13. We believe Prop 13 is the root of California's housing crisis. Reforming the law would generate $10 billion in new funding for the state, which would go to local governments to support local service programs, including housing. This funding is desperately needed to fund anti-displacement services, because we know very well what has happened across the Bay without adequate attention being paid to anti-displacement. As members of the tech community, we want to be sure that all San Franciscans have the resiliency to ride out the wave and not get washed out by it. Additional funds from Prop 13 could provide funding for these supports. It's estimated San Francisco would receive $800 million in funding from Prop 13, which could be allocated for affordable housing development, anti-displacement services, and homeless supports. We ask that you pass this resolution unanimously to show that San Francisco is on the leading edge of this progressive tax reform. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Karen Roda. I'm a resident of District 4, and I'd like to invite anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to sign the petition to put this initiative on the ballot to meet me after class. I'll be waiting outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
I'm Vance Yoshida. I currently serve as the president for the San Francisco Flower Mart. And I want to urge you all to pass the urging of the property exchange at 2000 Marin for 639 Bryant Street. It's really critical for our 50 tenants at the San Francisco Flower Market to have a location that they could thrive while the new market is being built. So I hope you all support it. I also want to thank Supervisors Kim and Supervisors Peskin for helping us to get this exchange. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
My name is Otto Duffy. I'm a resident of the neighborhood around City Hall. I think Matt Gonzalez was the first person I heard mentioning that corporations never get a bump up in their taxes. The issue that they're bringing up, it's long overdue to change that. I also noticed something about pedestrian injuries and car accidents and pedestrian fatalities. Some time ago, I noticed that while the Vision Zero is focusing most of their effort on the dense neighborhood of the Tenderloin in the downtown area, that fact that there are more incidents in that area is really an artifact of it's just a more dense neighborhood. If you look at it as a pedestrian walking around on the streets in San Francisco, your odds as a pedestrian of getting hit by a car are approximately equal anywhere in the city. And so there probably ought to be a little more focus on some of the other neighborhoods. And even in my neighborhood around here, on any given year, there's probably about an average of couple of hundred, 300, 400 deaths every year, lost years of life, and a small fraction of that is actually pedestrian-caused problems with cars. If you wanted to increase life expectancy and quality of life, you'd be looking more at more housing, particularly for small units for step-up housing and for homeless people, which is what all of the constituents are always complaining about. And also more universal health care and a single standard of care. That's what you would be focusing on.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Kelly Cutler. I'm with the Coalition on Homelessness, and the rest of my comrades are in Sacramento right now regarding the conservatorship bill, which one is it, 1045. And I thought I was getting out of having to go to meetings today, but then apparently not, so I'm here. And so we are in very strong opposition to it. And basically, it reminds me of like the tent ban. If there's no resources that are available, it just doesn't make sense. It's really facade. And so I'm here to strongly urge against that. And that's where there's so many people that are service providers, that are advocates, that are healthcare professionals, and so many other fields that are opposing this because it doesn't make sense. That's it.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other members of the public who would like to address the board during general public comment? Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, today we heard about UCSF. Lest it warm the cockles of your hearts or much, I'd like to remind you about some facts of which you probably are aware but could bear reminding. About 15 years ago, UCSF engaged in a major project of expansion in the Mission Bay neighborhood of this city. Many of the buildings down there, I'm sure you've been down there, are closed to the public. You might have been allowed to go inside because you presumably have security clearances, but I am not. And this is a campus that has been dedicated to the medical sciences. And yet they're doing classified research at the Mission Bay campus, and this is a new step for them. The old campus has no classified buildings closed to the public. I'm going to read to you from Executive Order 13-526 of what goes on in that kind of environment. Section 1.4, classification categories. Information shall not be considered for classification unless its unauthorized disclosure could reasonably be expected to cause identifiable or describable damage to the national security in accordance with Section 1.2 of this order, and it pertains to one or more of the following: A, military plans, weapons systems, or operations; B, foreign government information; C, intelligence activities, including covert action, intelligence sources or methods, or cryptology; D, foreign relations or foreign activities of the United States, including confidential sources; E, scientific, technological, or economical matters relating to the national security; F, United States government programs for safeguarding nuclear materials or facilities; G, vulnerabilities or capabilities of systems, installations, infrastructures. I'm out of time, Madam Clerk.
Thank you for your comments. Madam President.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Madam Clerk, please read the items for adoption without reference to committee.
Items 55 through 61 are being considered for adoption without committee reference. A single
All right.
roll. Oh, an item may be severed and considered separately. Sorry, Madam President.
Okay, so I'm going to remove item number 55. Supervisor Yee. Supervisor Fewer.
Yes, I'd like to sever item 56.
Okay, on the remaining items. Oh, before we take the vote, Madam Clerk, colleagues, can we entertain a motion to excuse Supervisor Peskin? Moved by Supervisor Kim, seconded by Supervisor Tang. Colleagues, can we do that without objection? Without objection, Supervisor Peskin is excused. And on the remaining items, excluding 55 and 56, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Fewer.
Aye.
Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. Supervisor Sheehy. Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Stephanie. Stephanie, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Those items are adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, let's go to item 55.
Item 55 is a resolution to support California State Senate Bill 1045, authored by Senators Scott Wiener and Henry Stern, expanding California's mental health conservatorship law to include individuals suffering from chronic homelessness when accompanied by debilitating mental illness, severe drug addiction, repeated psychiatric commitments, or excessively frequent use of emergency medical services.
Colleagues, I'd like to make a motion to continue this item 1 week to the meeting of April 24th, 2018. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Tang. Seeing no other names on the roster, can we take that without objection? Without objection, the motion is approved. Item number 56.
Item 56 is a resolution to support the California Schools and Local Communities Funding Act and reaffirming the Board of Supervisors' support for a split roll reform of Proposition 13 in order to close the commercial property tax loophole and restore billions in revenue.
Supervisor Fewer.
Thank you very much, President Breed. Colleagues, this resolution would support a split roll reform of Proposition 13, which would effectively close the unattended corporate loophole of Prop 13. While the intent of Proposition 13 is to help homeowners, loopholes in the system have permitted major commercial and industrial properties to avoid reassessment, a windfall to commercial property owners at the expense of vital public services. As a public school student, the parents of 3 public school students, and school board member, I've seen the impact that Prop 13 has had on our ability to fund schools. California schools have gone from some of the best funded schools in the nation to now being in the bottom 10. As a PTA president of 12 terms, I have raised money through fundraisers of carnivals and bake sales to buy paper, window blinds, pencils, and crayons, basic necessities that schools should really be providing. And also, this prohibits us from being able to serve the neediest students in our community with the resources they need to meet their academic potential. Corporations have gotten away with not paying their fair share for 40 years, and the tax cuts by number 45 have compounded this growth inequity. This is a common sense fix that will generate $10 billion per year for schools and public services across our state. That's $8 $300 million for San Francisco alone. Nearly 80% of this revenue will come from just 8% of commercial properties in California worth $5 million or more. Longtime commercial property owners will no longer be able to sit on valuable vacant land while paying almost nothing in property taxes, and this would help with our vacant storefronts. So today, colleagues, I ask for your support of this resolution.
Thank you, Supervisor Fewer. Colleagues, can we take this item, same House, same call? Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, it is my understanding that we have one imperative item.
Yes, Madam President. On behalf of Supervisor Peskin, a resolution commending Kearney Street Workshop on its 45th anniversary and proclaiming April 19th, 2018 to be Kearney Street Workshop Day in the City and County of San Francisco.
Supervisor Kim.
Supervisor Peskin had to leave due to a family emergency, but I did want to speak on his behalf. Actually, this is an organization that I have volunteered with and actually even performed at one of their events when I was part of a band. And this is commending Kearney Street Workshop on the occasion of their 45th anniversary and declaring April 19th, 2018 Kearney Street Workshop Day. It was founded by Jim Dong, Laura Fu, and Michael Chin. In 1972 at the ground floor of the International Hotel on the last block of Kearney Street that was part of what was then the historic Manila town where many of our Manongs and Filipino seniors lived. It was the site of a struggle for decades to retain an SRO hotel that housed many of our growing a senior population, the Filipino community who had worked in San Francisco for decades and was a place of really just amazing activism and history where women, the Black Panthers, Asian American activists came to protest before all of the seniors were evicted, including Kearney Street Workshop, dragged out by the sheriffs. 40 years later, we were able to rebuild the iHotel as a site for affordable housing for seniors here in San Francisco. It's a triumph and victory. Of course, an immense loss that for 40 years this housing did not exist, but amazing that we were able to bring it back, and just want to commend Kearney Street Workshop for their role in the iHotel struggle and their continuing work to support emerging Asian Pacific American artists over the last 45 years here in the city and county of San Francisco.
So, Supervisor Kim, are you going to make any motions?
Thank you, President Breed. So I'd like to make a motion to add this to the imperative agenda.
And certify that it is purely commendatory and that there is no need to take any further action because it doesn't violate the Brown Act?
Yes.
The board, before acting, must make motions that it is purely commendatory and also that it came to the attention of the board after the publication of the agenda of today's meeting. So
the motion to move this forward as an imperative item and that it is purely commendatory. And I'm sorry, I didn't hear the second half.
And that it came to the attention of the board after the publication of the agenda for today's meeting.
Okay. Yes. So Supervisor Kim has moved what was said by our Deputy City Attorney, John Givner. And is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Yee. Supervisor Yee.
I'm glad this was brought to our attention. It slipped my mind also. I was actually a member of the Kearney Street Workshop in its infant stages in the mid-'70s, being a teacher of some arts and crafts type of things, and then eventually joining their photography unit, I guess, to help publish books and document what was going on around the Chinese or the Chinatown community. So it's been that long. I didn't realize that, but my goodness, I actually almost forgot I was a member of it. So I'm glad we're doing this today.
Thank you. So there is a motion and second, and can we open it up to public comment? Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on this imperative item? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Colleagues, can we take the motion without objection? Without objection, the motion passes unanimously. And on the actual item, colleagues, can we take that same house, same call? Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please read the in memoriams.
Today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following beloved individuals. On behalf of Supervisor Peskin for the late Mr. Ernie Bile and Mr. Stephen Fong. On behalf of Supervisor Safai for the late Miss Miriam Zelaya Dunaway. On behalf of Supervisor Tang for the late Miss Sharon Belmer.
Colleagues, this brings...
Madam President, I apologize. At the suggestion of President Breed and on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors for the late Doris Ward, former Assessor Recorder and President of the Board of Supervisors, and on behalf of President Breed and the entire Board of Supervisors for the late Mr. James Hennessy.
Thank you. Supervisor Cohen?
Thank you. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, I actually have a question. It has to do with the imperative agenda. It actually is item number 56. And I'm not quite sure procedurally how to...
We would need to rescind the vote.
56, the California Schools and Local Communities Funding?
Yes, that's correct. How...
I need to rescind the vote to discuss it, Supervisor Cohen.
Really?
Yes. So you'd like to make a motion to rescind the vote?
I'd like to make a motion to rescind the vote.
Okay, Supervisor Cohen has made a motion to rescind the vote. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Sheehy. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, the vote has been rescinded. On the item, Supervisor Cohen?
Thank you very much for allowing me an opportunity just to talk to the sponsor. Supervisor Fewer has just informed me, and I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. I'm sorry, ladies. This resolution, is there exemption for... So the reason why I'm flagging this is that when you talk about split roll, I'm concerned that it adversely affects small business owners and women, minority business owners in particular. So can you talk to me a little bit about the exemption?
Small business owners would be exempt from this reform and also provided with direct tax relief through elimination of the business personal property tax. That means that they would no longer have to pay taxes on any of their equipment or fixtures and things like that, which they now are assessed by.
Okay.
50 employees or less.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for, 50 employees or less.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We can continue, make a motion to,
Okay.
what is this?
So, colleagues, can we take this?
Oh, I'm sorry, one more question.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, in terms of procedure, are we able to send this back to committee to discuss?
This item is a resolution, and it is the single privilege of a supervisor to send it to committee.
Okay. I'd like to send it back just to discuss a little bit more.
Okay, so we could either send it to committee or there could be a continuance for 1 week.
I'm happy with the continuance for 1 week. We can hear it here.
Okay. So Supervisor Cohen has made a motion to continue this item for 1 week to the meeting of April 24th, Madam Clerk?
That's correct, Madam President.
2018. Roll call vote on the continue. It was moved. Sorry. Supervisor Cohen has made a motion to continue. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Kim. No? Okay. Supervisor Kim is not second. Supervisor Fewer has seconded for a 1 week continuance.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, we'll continue this item 1 week.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Madam Clerk, have you finished reading the in memoriams?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay, colleagues, there's no further business before us today. Thank you. We are adjourned.